Malinowski.
Here.
Krause.
Here.
Heck.
Here.
Palmieri.
Here.
Allison Osby. Cummings.
Here.
Present 6.
Would you all please rise while Deputy Mayor Herman leads us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance?
We come together this evening to discuss the issues that confront our city. May we always seek the wisdom to do things that reflect our concerns for the people who we represent. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business on tonight's agenda is a public hearing, which I must read 3 times. It is Resolution 17-489, approve final resolution for special assessments contract number 17-31, cold mix asphalt paving, 1021 Bauman Street. Second reading, Resolution 17-489, approve final resolution for special assessments contract number 17-31, cold mix asphalt paving, 1021 Bauman Street. Third and final reading, Resolution 17-489, approve final resolution for special assessments contract number 17-31, cold mix asphalt paving, 1021 Bauman. Pam, is there anyone who would like to address this resolution?
Yes, we have Don Shettle, 1021 Bauman Street. If you would come to the podium, please.
I have 3 sets of photographs.
Sir, could you move the mic closer to you? Thank you.
I have 3 sets of photographs there, so I hope that you could share with the person next to you. I received a letter saying that they're going to redo the street in front of my house. It's a 2-block section that they're going to redo. The pictures show the street in front of my house. It's labeled west. I'm on the west side of the street. Picture 1 is a shot looking north, and it covers 3/4 of the stretch of property that they're going to be doing. You can see that on either side of the road, the road is divided into thirds from east to west. It's 1/3 property on assessed properties on the west, 1/3 on the east, and the city's obligation is usually billed down the center for that third. The road was moved about 8 or 10 years ago, I'm guessing. I've been there 40 years, and it was moved then because they wanted to straighten the road out. I was told Mr. Potek was the head of the Public Works at the time, and he said that they were just going to add, what they wanted to do is they moved the road to the 80-foot right of way for the road, and it's a 24-foot road, so they wanted to move it as far west as they could, which would be up against my property as close as they could go. So they did that, and in doing that, they had the, you can see the stretch on the west in the photograph. That's in front of my house. That was grass, and so they put a stretch of pavement there, and then they did the same on the opposite side, but they did nothing in the middle. And you can see the condition of the road in the middle. It's in bad repair, but both sides of the street are in very good repair. Number 2 picture is a picture right in front of my house. It shows a close-up of the condition of the road. The city moved this down the road. Mr. Potek said to me at the time, the city doesn't have money to repair the whole road, so we're just going to do a piece on this side and a piece on that side, kind of a Band-Aid approach. And I said, we're just going to have problems down the line with this because the center is going to deteriorate when you got good road on both sides. You're going to have 2/3 of a good road, and the center is going to be bad. It's exactly what we've got here. Now the city's coming along now and saying in this letter I got that the property in front of the road in front of my property is deteriorated and needs to be repaired. And I'm going to be assessed for this. This is not my doing. This is the city's doing. This is a poor job they did. It shuffled the costs down the line when they can bill me, the taxpayer. That's an injustice. My proposal to the city is either put another Band-Aid right down the middle, because all they're doing is this is supposed to be remedial to cover for a few years. We have an 80-year-old sewer system down that road, and they say it lasts from 75 years to 100 years. this is supposed to cover for a few years until the sewer gets replaced, and then they do curb and gutter. I'm saying if that's the case and this is remedial, just do the center of it and have the city pay it, because that's their portion. But if the city wants to do the whole thing, they should cover my cost of it. I'm the only property owner of this stretch that's adversely affected. That's all I have to say, unless you have some questions for me.
Mr. Shettle, were you assessed when that
No,
one?
the city paid the road, they wanted
Okay.
to move it, and they moved it, I believe, because they gave the property owners on the east side, which is the river side, they each gave them 20 feet of the road right of way. 20 feet times the width of their lot, which was.
When was
100
this?
I'm guessing 8 or 10 years back. I didn't look up the exact date. So that's why it was originally moved, and that's why they moved it as far west onto my side as they could. So they had plenty to work with there. So all 4 of those property owners on the east side benefited from it. There's 4 properties on the, the 4 on the east side benefited. They were the river properties. They all got land from the city, from the road right away. There's only 4 other property owners on the east side. The man, myself, was an owner of both the east and west, so he was a benefit. The 2 to my north were not there at the time. It's changed hands. So I'm the only one there that's been there that's, when I say I'm adversely affected, I'm the only one out of all the property owners that is.
What- And I don't know, maybe somebody from Public Works can, excuse me, answer this. I mean, in the documentation that we have is, I do see several properties that are being assessed. But why is this only in the,
This is the only one that's at this particular hearing, because there was a notice that was missed on this property owner. If you remember, the remaining properties were covered under the public hearing at the last council meeting, but somehow a notice got missed to this property owner. So that's why this is back tonight for just this one property.
so then all of the other property that abut are on Ballman Street or will be receive an assessment for
Yes,
this
everybody
repair?
will be assessed in accordance with the policy.
Okay. So then, the gentleman is not being treated any different than any of the other property owners on Ballman?
No, it's just a notice was missed, and that's why this is back tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
James, why wasn't any of this information put into our packets regarding the fact that the city did do some work? It doesn't really state in here, it just says existing pavement on Bauman Street was placed in 1925.
I don't have that information, unfortunately. Alan, can I borrow your book for a minute?
Mr. Rolfe, we put one of these pictures up on the view, will that show up?
Yeah, one of those, yeah, they would.
The only thing I could probably say is, when the work was done, if the GIS wasn't appropriately updated to reflect both of them, it may have just had the overall year instead of having a number of notes as far as there being some work done on the side. That would be the only reason I can think that the note in the memo didn't address that.
Ms. Palmieri?
Just a follow-up question then, Mr. Abbey. So why would we not have repaired that center section? Is this like kind of a one-off, or is this something that we do in other locations
You mean at this time or in the past?
in the past?
I don't know why the decision would have been made in the past that was made. I didn't have any information related to those decisions at that time, and didn't know we were gonna get into that tonight to try and dig into that in the file.
Mr. Belmar, I was told by Mr. Potek, the reason it wasn't done is because the city didn't have the money to do it.
Deputy Mayor Herman?
Mr. Robbie, in looking at that photograph that was up, it appears it's the center of the road. That would have been where we put the storm sewers on Ballman at the time?
I do not believe there are actually storm sewers paralleling Bowman. Bowman parallels the river, so the storm sewers in that area would be perpendicular to Bowman on all the cross streets and have outfalls directly out to the river. I do not believe there is a storm sewer down Bowman itself.
Okay. So, and it's hard to tell from the diagram, it appears that both sides of the street look pretty good, but the center, I imagine, because that's what, a 28 width street? Or not?
24.
24 only? Most of the traffic drives down the center of the road being narrow, correct? I would think, being a 24-foot width street. Hard to say, but it just seems weird that it's down the middle, which is our responsibility, I guess, in a sense. I don't know. But we did approve this prior, other than the gentleman being missed at the notice of the public hearing previously. Okay.
Just to clarify, the policy isn't done to say the city covers the middle third. It's just that the city covers 1/3 and
Okay.
each resident side covers 1/3, and the city assumes because it's on the other side of the street, city property is owned on that side of the street. Actually, city's picking up about 2/3 of this because we're owner on the other side of the street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
And I mean, the comment I want to make is, and again, I'm not throwing any of my predecessors under the bus here, but, you know, I've often used the term, it's one thing to be frugal, it's another to be cheap, and this is one of the situations where the city kind of cheaped out and didn't take care of something when it probably should have been done to the full extent that it needed to be done, so. And then the other thing is that the gentleman's concerns are heard, but all the other properties are also being assessed for this particular improvement.
Deputy Mayor Herman.
And that, I guess that was going to be my final comment too. It isn't like Mr. Shettle's being singled out. All the property owners in this section of Ballman are being assessed equally. Obviously, the city did do some street work there over the years. I myself have a cold mix asphalt on my side of the street, and it lasted already 10 years. And so I think this is a good way to extend the life of the road in that area, and I'll support approving this.
I see no other council member that wishes to speak to this resolution, so would the city clerk please take the roll?
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
No.
Kraus,
Aye.
Pack,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 5-1.
Next on the agenda, we have two presentations. The first is by Professor David Fuller on the impact of EAA on the local economy. Please come forward to this podium. Oh, this one?
That's where.
If that's where you put your presentation, that'll work fine, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you for having me here. Anytime I get an audience willing or unwilling to listen to some of my thoughts, that's perfect. Sorry. So, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. So, little confusion. I was originally going to speak about police, fire, and rescue charges. Some ideas related to that, which is what I have prepared. At the last minute, it was economic impact of EAA, which I didn't prepare, but I'm happy to talk about that if that's what you want to hear.
It's whatever presentation Mr. Gelzer asked you to do.
Okay, then I'll stick with the one I have here. If you have questions about the economic impact of EAA, I'm happy to answer those.
I'm sorry, just so I know that, are we changing the agenda?
Right.
No, he's back on.
I think it's relevant to the discussion.
Our agenda states impact of EAA on local economy.
he's doing an economic analysis. I think it'd be appropriate to give him the leeway. He's gonna be talking about EAA with respect to police and fire
Oh,
charges. So
I see.
it'll be, economists will always find a way to make it relevant.
Or as Harry Truman said, send me a one-armed economist, because they always say on the one hand.
There we go. Yes, so this is a good illustration. of-
Welcome.
Yes, thank you. No, that's okay. I can talk about whatever you want me to talk about. That's fine. So, you know, I'll try to keep this brief. I know these meetings get long, so I'll be relatively brief in my comments. So the main idea here is that, you know, Oshkosh is the event city, faces an important trade-off. Events are great because they bring in additional economic activity among other positive benefits, right? So it brings the city recognition, exposure. These are all positives. There's of course a big negative to having an event, which is that it puts a strain on city resources. So included in those city resources that I'm talking about specifically are police, fire, and rescue services. So if we need these things for events, which we do, the question is how do we charge for these in the best way possible? So not the economic impact of the EAA. So what's my goal in this presentation is an economist's perspective on what the best way to accomplish these charges are. And I think it's important that the goal of my analysis or thought here is really, you know, what's in the best interest of the city, not necessarily specifically what's in the best interest of an event or what's in the best interest of the police, fire, and rescue services, what's in the best interest of the city overall. So I would argue that, you know, the stakes are relatively high for these types of issues. It might seem at the time that, you know, how we charge for these things doesn't matter as long as the budget is balanced. But, you know, in current times, I think every city has some financial strain on the budget. And simply balancing the budget, it might work for today, but it has future implications that are very important, I think. So getting these charges right is very important right now. So and I mean this in the best possible way, my perspective is usually different than the perspective of specifically somebody in charge of the city budget. So if I'm in charge of the city budget, my job is to make sure the city budget is balanced, and that's what I'm supposed to do. So when I look at charges, I'm thinking, what revenue am I going to get from that? And that's exactly what I should be doing. As an economist, I'm thinking a little bit more broadly in terms of, you know.
Excuse me, Councilmember Peck does have a question.
Excuse
Yes,
me.
fire away.
With all due respect, Professor, impact of EAA on local economy, where's the there related to the impact on the local economy of EAA? That's what is on our agenda. That's what we were
Yes,
expecting to hear, and what we're hearing is something related to something that's on the agenda later this evening.
Yeah, this is what I was asked to present. Then
Asked by whom?
By Dave Geltzer. This is,
But, okay,
this
all
is
right.
what I was asked to present. So
Then I
then
would
the
direct-
agenda came to me at the last minute and said economic impact of the EA, which wasn't what I asked to present, so I don't know.
So,
I don't know what signal was crossed.
I
can
mean,
tell you the economic
I'm not
impact
looking
of
to
the EA.
be, I'm just,
Yeah,
is.
I forwarded that to Mr. Gelzer. He didn't correct, he said he might get back to me. He didn't get me back to me with another wording of it, so I left it the way it was. And all I can say is that's what I put on the agenda.
Because is one of the things is we've, there's a lot of chatter out in the community that, you know, we're hiding things, that we're not being open and communicative of what's going on. And I'm just looking at this as saying, if this is what we were going to talk about is local economic impact of the EAA, we're now wandering down into actually charges. And I'm seeing the city attorney nodding her head, so I would defer to her as far as, is this truly what is on the agenda.
Again, I'm just hearing this for the first time as well, but it seems to relate more to the item that's on later on our agenda from what the discussion has been so far.
I can't argue.
And Ms. Uberg, it looks like you've got something to,
We just have a gentleman in the audience standing.
I'm Dave Galzer, who's a person who knows Mr. Roloff.
Dave, why don't you
Come up to one of the microphones, please.
My name is Dave Galzer. I'm EA Legal Counsel, and I am the pivot man here, I guess. I've mentioned to council members, and I've mentioned to Mr. Roloff and his staff, that we had asked Professor Fuller to do this study. All of you have it because I've sent it to you, and we've discussed it at the working group meetings. I had said to Mr. Roloff, I would like for Professor Fuller to be able to present the report, which he is trying to talk about, to the council. We talked about scheduling it for tonight. I sent Mr. Roloff a title which was broader than the one that's on your agenda. I saw it for the first time yesterday morning when I pulled up the agenda that was posted. And it was a combination really of the study that Dr. Fuller is trying to present and fiscal impact. In my request to Mr. Roloff, it was absolutely clear the study I was interested in was the one that he did that did not relate to the $170 million economic benefit to the valley. That's what I requested. I just ask your indulgence. There was no attempt to hide anything. I don't have the email with me, but I could obviously get it, saying to Mark, here's what I'd like him to present, and it was the study that he's trying to talk about. So there's no attempt at all to hide the ball in the council or mislead you in any way. And it is a study which you all have, so I sent it to you a few weeks ago.
okay. Understood, but again, I'm to the point, what we're looking at thus far in the presentation is related to the discussion that will be held later on this evening related to.
Fair enough. All I'm saying is I requested that he be permitted to present the first study, which is the one he has, to the council. It was put on the agenda. I didn't put it there. It's a presentation rather than just a comment on item 19, which is the later discussion about the charges.
Well, then maybe what we need to do is get to the economic impact of it and then the discussion about charges when we discuss number 19.
Professor Fuller's study that he and I both wanted to have presented tonight deals with a strategic view of how the city should look at how it charges for events. It's broader than just the 2018 charges that are on the agenda for later this evening. It's a presentation. It doesn't relate directly to that, although it obviously is related to it, but it is not about the proposed charges for 2018.
So, but you did say that it's in relation to charges, not, I thought we were talking economic development or economic impact.
No, that was a mistake between Mr. Roloff and myself as to what the title would be for his presentation. In my view, there was never any doubt that the subject of the presentation was to be exactly what he wants to talk about. A two-part study that he did relating to how a city should approach the task of determining charges for special events, which is a study which I'm not expecting everybody to have even read it, let alone remember everything that's in it, but I did forward it to all council members, I would say 6 weeks ago. So Roloff has it, is familiar with it.
There was something about a two-part study, and you referenced how charges are made. What's the second part?
Well, I can read the title of it to you. The first part is the one he flashed on the screen, which is called Charging for Police, Fire, and Rescue at Special Events. That's a strategic look at the big picture. The second part, which I think we got shortly after the first part, is called Assessing the Fiscal Impact of AirVenture on the City of Oshkosh. And that is not the $170 million benefit to the whole valley. This is very specific to the city. This is an economic study based on research. The 170 million, the other study that's gotten the publicity, is based on a survey of attendees at AirVenture and how they spent their money. They sound alike, but they're really different studies. One is an economic study of how charges and how the event, AirVenture, filters into the city itself. The other is a widescreen view of the total economic benefit to the whole valley. Am I saying that correctly, Professor?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah, obviously, I got the wrong report that I transferred on. I did locate Mr. Gelser's email where he talks about this title, and I got those crossed, and that I take responsibility. Sorry, I thought I talked to you after that, and that's where I got mixed up, but it's council's pleasure. I think it's, if there's concerns,
Councilperson Palmer.
Dr. Fuller could talk about this during special events because there's an item on the agenda related to that.
So we don't have under Professor David Fuller presentation, anything in our packet on that.
No.
And it sounds like this was just a cross or a missed communication. So I guess we don't have a presentation on the economic impact. So then the presentation that he's proposing needs to come on that later. That's the way I feel about it, that this is not what's on here right now.
Deputy
in the
Mayor
agenda.
Herman.
I guess I would agree with Councilmember Palmieri. I was expecting, what is the economic impact that EA brings to the city of Oshkosh? And I would like his PowerPoint ahead of time to take a look at it so that if I had any questions, I could ask him.
I'm sure he'd be pleased.
Obviously, his PowerPoint at the resolution, when we get to
Right.
503, is going to be past the 5-minute time limit. So I guess to be consistent with council rules, this is over and above the agenda item. So I guess I would say we move to item 3 in presentations.
How do other council members feel about this? Councilperson Pansky?
Professor, did you say that you had a second part that is directly related to the local, or the
I
economic
have done
impact
a
of EAA?
Study on
And you
that.
have that with you?
No.
No.
There were 2 reports that you received, as Mr. Gelser talked about. That was prior to the September 12th workshop. So I just got the titles mixed up with the 2 different reports. So this item is on the agenda, and it may be appropriate.
Then I would prefer to wait until 503 as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just so you know, I don't have anything to say about that specific resolution.
Okay.
This
Is that
isn't
the,
resolution specific, it was general.
is that the general feeling amongst the council that we reschedule this?
I think it's more
made my-
appropriate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
With all due respect to the gentleman, we have to make sure that we notice things correctly. Wouldn't want to get accused of hiding anything.
So we'll reschedule the president for a later council meeting.
And actually, I think with the amount of information that he has, and it's probably very accurate and very good information, might actually be in front of a council meeting, almost like a workshop, in a sense that he would have plenty of time to explain it, we would have plenty of time to ask questions. Because this is when we pass ordinances and we do things, those are moving documents. There isn't anything that says we can't go back and make changes to things, to address certain issues that the professor will bring up in that. The working group did work together to put something together to move forward into 18, but that doesn't mean we can't, if things balance out that we want to make changes or should make changes, we can do that. And I think that's where his information is valuable, and I would like to hear it in a more of a presentation format, not at
Yeah.
a full
Well,
council
that was
meeting, with
the-
a lot of items on the agenda.
Yeah, that was kind of the debate we were having on September 12th when the report was provided. So and we can certainly schedule that if that's council's pleasure. And I
Yes.
apologize for any confusion that I may have caused Mr. Gelser and Dr. Fuller.
The next presentation we have is House Hill and Levine presentation on concept plans for possible redevelopment of Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course and report on public input sessions. I know a lot of people here that would like to speak to this issue. The procedure we will follow after the presentation, council will ask their questions if there are questions. Following that, the public will have the opportunity to address the council. There is a 5-minute limit, and we expect civility as we had at the last meeting. Mr. Davis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce the project and give you a little background, since this is our first opportunity to talk about what happened last week, or actually the week before, when we put the concept plans on the city website and invited commentary. We've been getting comments on the different concepts ever since that went on the city's website, I believe on September 29th. Last Wednesday and Thursday, we had 2 opportunities for public input. Some of that information has been provided to you tonight in written form. There was a lot of testimony, commentary from the Plan Commission, the Advisory Parks Board, since it was a joint workshop. We had several members from other boards and commissions in attendance Wednesday night. And we also had very thoughtful commentary from, or comments from members of the public. That's all been summarized for your information in the packet there. I also provided the slides that I went through with the project, and wanted to highlight a couple of things to you. Number one, the concept plan is not a fixed document. We're still working on a concept plan. We're working on putting a proposal together by the end of October. And so this is just one piece of that overall project. So there were a lot of comments about different things that we could do with the property, things that we shouldn't do with the property. 9-hole golf course was an alternative. Different types of other recreational amenities were talked about. We're not really going down that path at this point, because that's really for the Advisory Parks Board and the Parks Department to figure out, should the council decide we're actually going to submit this proposal, and should Oshkosh Corp. Actually select Oshkosh for their corporate headquarters, because we're still in a competitive environment right now. So we have to put a proposal together at the end of October to submit to them for their consideration in November. After that point, I think any implementation of any kind of concept would be turned over to the Parks Department and the Advisory Parks Board to figure out what we do with those 60, 70 acres that are going to be remaining. So I just want to make sure the council was clear on that. We do have a meeting scheduled, closed session tonight, to even talk about a proposal. We have a couple more opportunities through October so that we can put this all together and submit it by November 1st, 2017. I think that's all the highlights I wanted to bring regarding what's happened in the past. We still have the city's website live, and we're still getting comments, so I'll provide those to you as time progresses. But at this point, I guess I'd like to turn it over to Nick Davis from House Hill Levine. They're the firm. These are the guys that actually put together the Central City Investment Strategy and that Sawdust District proposal that we used for the arena project. We talked about the concept plans. He's going to go into greater detail, try to keep it to 10 minutes so we can go through the concepts, just so you have an idea what we presented to the public and what you guys can consider what we want to include in a proposal.
Before we start, I have 3 council members who I think want to speak before the presentation. Is that? Okay. Deputy Mayor Herman?
Thank you. I understand the concept situation, but somebody had to determine that we're going to go forward in this direction. Who made that decision? I mean, the concepts, the citizens are weighing in on the concepts. How can we change their weigh-in 3, 4, 5 months down the line if we want to go in a different direction. And what would Oshkosh Corp then say if they choose to purchase 34 acres and we change the concept on them? So I'm thinking that the concepts are the direction we're gonna have to go, because we're already having our citizens weigh in on it. We're proposing it to Oshkosh Corp. How can we turn around and change the concepts? We want to remodify 9 holes out there or redesign the whole situation. Once the concept's pretty much out there and approved by the community, I don't see how we can change anything. And yet you're telling us that it's wide open. And yet you've held meetings, which I could not attend last week. So you've held meetings already on the concepts. That pretty much tells me we're going in this direction. There is no other alternative direction to go to. And that bothers me because we have not weighed in on any of it. We've not been able to weigh in on any of it. So somebody in City Hall made the decision that we're gonna go in this direction. We're gonna close the golf course if Oshkosh Corp moves ahead, and we're gonna go ahead and, put out the docks and the fishing piers, and I'm not against any of that. I'm not a dire fisherman, but I'm a more golfer than a fisherman by fish, so I understand, and we need green space. We're behind that. I sit on the Parks Board, I hear that all the time. We don't have enough space for the size of our community. We need more. But all I'm saying is we're going in a direction I don't think we can come back from. And yet we're saying it's still wide open and there's no concept in place. I guess, as one council member, I would disagree with that.
The Parks Advisory Board made it very, Advisory Parks Board made it very clear, and the Parks Department's made it very clear that they want time to actually do a master plan, if there's actually going to be the 70 acres remaining. Mr. Maurer and the Advisory Parks Board was very adamant that they need to actually do the plan similar to what they've done with Rainbow Park. We haven't done that. We're still working on concepts that we could actually present as a proposal, a non-binding proposal even, to Oshkosh Corporation, just to get to the point where we could have them consider this as their site for Oshkosh, because we are down to one site for their consideration in Oshkosh, and it is the golf course.
Typically, concept plans similar to the Sawdust District, they're always subject to final plans. This is really just to get the public an idea of what things could be possible out there. That's really more an issue of preparing ourselves to have that discussion. The Parks Board would play a major role in any redevelopment out there. Ultimately, they would be making the final recommendations to the council. This is really just to kind of prime the pump to get the public thinking about what possibilities might be there. I think you can take a look at any of the concepts there. There were only 2 concepts, and people made some very good suggestions on other things that are possible out there, and that's the purpose of a conceptual discussion. If you take a look at the Sawdust District, the only thing right now that's even in play right now is the arena. The arena hasn't even been finished yet, but yet the concepts are still out there. Those things still have yet to be done. The council hasn't even approved those, yet we're still working on the arena, even though the concept hasn't been finally approved by the council. It's not unusual for the conceptual plans to be out there to get people's creative juices flowing, and then afterwards get a little more solid with what your actual intents are, and get a little more detail.
Councilman Peck?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did send an email out to Mr. Roloff, Mr. Davis, Mr. Burridge last week, copied all the council members. So it is a public record. If anybody wants it, I will give it to them. But in that email, I indicated that any discussion of concept is that there is the area that Oshkosh Corp is interested in to build their corporate facility. The rest of the area that is now Lakeshore Golf Course will, and I repeat, will be maintained as green space in one way or another for the community. Furthermore, any funds that would be generated from the sale of any land that the city owns, public land, for this, would be directed back into the development of green space and public access spaces within the community. So there are two proposals in front of us. There's Concept 1 and Concept 2. Basically, that takes Concept 2 off because there is some significant additional development in the area that is now part of Lake Shore Golf Course. So I think, did I state it clearly enough that basically what doesn't go to Oshkosh Corp remains green space? Is there any doubt?
You were very clear in your email. The whole purpose of getting that public input session is to see if there are any other ideas out there. And we had a number of people who gave us some really good input on things that they would like to see. Those things still have to be vetted out. And I would suggest to everybody to keep an open mind about what possibilities may be out there, not necessarily settling in on one or the other. And I think it may be appropriate to perhaps listen to the House Seal Levine presentation, because I think Mr. Davis can give you an idea of what, and I mean this Mr. Davis, no relation, but Mr. Davis maybe can give you an idea of what the purpose of concept plans are. They really are to get people thinking. There clearly are preferences that are out there, but there's also other ideas that have been kicked around. And I think Mr. Davis documented those and is ready to share those with council as well.
It's just one last comment.
Councilman Palmieri?
Oh, let him finish.
Go ahead.
So, what I think I hear Councilmember Herman saying, and at least in my head, I've got a little bit of a challenge because there's an assumption here that the council has not even agreed on whether or not this will discontinue as an 18-hole golf course, or whether or not we're even going to move forward yet. We have not had that discussion yet. So I think that that's where the disconnect is we're putting the cart before the horse here. And I know there's a compressed timeline, which I'm not real comfortable with, but it just seems like it's a little bit out of order. No, not a little bit, a lot out of order. And I think that's where the concern is coming from. So on our timeline that we have on the 10th, where we talk about what we're going to be discussing in closed session, there's not even the decision-making part of pursuing the next steps. That hasn't happened yet. That's all.
Just one comment. I mean, a concept plan is a concept plan. You have to start from somewhere. You can't just keep verbalizing something. We are in competition with other communities throughout the country. We have to start somewhere. And a concept plan, it's potentially 30 acres that would be sold to Oshkosh Corporation with a number, 70 other acres for development. What that development is, we don't know. We just know, at least I know, it will be green space. It's not going to be houses. It's not going to be condos. It's not going to be lemonade stands or gas stations. It's green space, park space for the community, which the community has said over and over, we're lacking in green space. Here's our opportunity to really give the community, all the community, what they've been looking for. What it'll look like in the final end. That's going to take a while to come to fruition, but we've got to start somewhere. The discussion has to start somewhere, and if it takes a concept, drawing, or illustration, whatever you want to call it, I think that's the starting point for everyone. So with that, if there's no other council comments, you're up to bat.
Just one more follow, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Just the other thing on the timeline here, I just have a clarifying question. So November 1st, where it says draft proposal due to Oshkosh Corporation, is that still a draft, or wouldn't that be the final, the final draft?
I put that on the schedule just to make sure that that's when we got it to Oshkosh Corporation. I had city council action on the proposal to make it a final on the November 14th agenda.
Okay, so it's the pre-council final draft, right? Would that Does that make
Yes.
sense? Okay.
Yes.
All right, just, that's all I needed to clarify. Thanks.
I'll turn it over to you.
Can we pull up the presentation, please?
Sure.
So, yeah, I just kind of picking up on the discussion that's already being had. Part of what we want to talk about tonight, and I will be quick and go through these and allow time for obviously questions and comments. But if we are at a very conceptual point of this project, I would say as we move through this and as we had discussed this last week with both the joint committee, which was last on 10/4, and then also with the public, is this is more about, it's about program. That's really what we're talking about, and it was trying to set aside the right amount of land that we know Oshkosh Corporation is looking for as part of their criteria for this effort. But there's also this other side of then what can happen with this other space, this space that could be transformed into a public open space. And what would that look like? And I think just saying, you would have 70 acres or 65 acres doesn't really paint the picture. I don't think it makes it clear to Oshkosh Corporation as part of that proposal of what you're trying to accomplish. And it also doesn't really echo back to the public about what you can do here. So it's about size, scale. So that's really what these concept plans are about. They're, both Alan and the mayor are correct in that there are many, many iterations of this plan. What we're going to talk about tonight, hopefully some of those program items carry through, but you still need to go into preliminary plans, you still need to go into construction documents. There's going to be a whole nother exercise to design this. This is just to get people on the same page about ultimately what could happen in this space. So what I want to talk about are two concept plans that are prepared and then a 3D rendering just to give you the sense of scale. The first plan we're going to talk about, concept number 1, was really geared towards the ultimate focus here was maximizing open space, maximizing access for the public to gain a new area where they could go within the city. They have access to the waterfront. It's very public. It's connected with trails, open space, different kind of program items that we'll kind of walk through. There are also going to be access to some proposed retail and restaurants that are separate from obviously the golf course property, but are adjacent to Oshkosh Avenue and some of those advantages with the new headquarters coming in here. So the first thing that we wanted to look at as we were talking to Oshkosh Corporation are, knowing that this is the site that they're really zeroed in on, why is that? And some of those are the views. So as you're coming down I-41 and you have this view of this site, we want to make sure that the corporation, and this is a location that they've identified on this site, that they're really interested in. So that yellow line that you see as we kind of bounce around this map, that's an area that they made clear to us that if they were to pick this site, this is where they'd like to be. This does allow for a lot of opportunities for open space, so parks, trails, connection to a waterfront trail that I know it might be hard to see on this map, but a waterfront trail that runs all along the river, connects down into the site. It's something that both Oshkosh employees are able to use, but also the public, which is great, and it's something that we know Oshkosh Corporation is very concerned with and something that they're taking into consideration as they look for sites. We also know that that's stuff we've heard from the public. They'd love to see more access into this area, more connections to the riverfront, ways to connect existing trails. As I mentioned, that yellow line shows both the 29 acres that they're looking for their initial build out, and then also accommodates an additional 6 acres of land that would allow for potential expansion. The way we program this building footprint does meet their initial standards for what they're trying to accomplish. But the footprint itself could change, the location could change, the parking could change. The idea that we're trying to show here is that there will be parking and that it shouldn't be, fronting directly on the waterfront, or that buildings should be closer to the waterfront. That's really what we're trying to get across through this graphic. Where we could, we tried to preserve the existing tree canopy to the best that we can. Obviously, an additional study will be conducted to make sure that you're keeping the hardiest of those trees or those that are the most beneficial to the area. We show potential dock locations. We talk about where fishing piers might be located to take advantage of some of the views and access. Some additional open space that would connect to the Rainbow Park that's been planned through their recent master plan. This graphic represents visually what that master plan already has programmed for in the future for its future or potential installations. Coming further south on the site,
Mary Jewel Park, taking advantage of an existing park in that space, but connecting those trails, getting access to some of these key intersections at Oshkosh Avenue and Eagle Street, and then making sure that there's an east-west connection between these different uses and some of the proposed open space. As you can see, the open space sort of wraps this entire Oshkosh, location. And that's something, again, that they said to us that they're very interested in, and it's really important that their employees have access to the space, and it's also an opportunity for the public to have a very well-connected, extensive trail system throughout this site and this location. One of the things that I did mention, that dash line, the darker dash line that you see, almost black, that is relatively the existing golf course footprint. So just as you can kind of see in this concept, at no point do we show future development other than the Oshkosh site, Oshkosh Corporation site, do we show other development in this area. So this is all open space. Sorry. Oh. Do you want me to keep going, or?
Would you please let them finish their presentation, then ask your questions at one time?
So overall, this site does show some potential commercial developments in line with some recent proposals, but it also shows some other opportunities about how to maximize some of that frontage along Oshkosh Avenue, knowing that these potential improvements are going to occur more into the site. So we show some retail, potential services, restaurants, those types of amenities that, again, we know Oshkosh Corporation is also looking for and hopes that is adjacent to their recommended site. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on concept number 2, mainly because in most cases it's identical to concept number 1, except for in one area, which is that, I'm going to kind of bounce right to it, in this area more to the south and west. And this one shows, and you can kind of see with the dashed line, I'm going to head over that way. It just shows this extensive sort of business park, office park, would also accommodate potential restaurants. So it's a much larger build out. Again, you would be able to capitalize on some of the opportunities, knowing that Oshkosh Corporation wants to relocate to this space. You could see some ancillary uses or some compatible uses that would fit well in here. But again, that development does go into what is the existing footprint. So you are removing some potential open space opportunities. And then just a 3D visualization. This is a 3D visualization of concept number 1. So in this graphic, you get a sense of what that Rainbow Park build-out would look like over time after all the improvements have been installed. There would be, parks, playgrounds, ball fields, courts. We're also showing to the best that we can what those potential connections could look like. How would the Riverfront Trail connect to the trail network that's internal within the overall new open space? How does that also relate to the recommendation of where Oshkosh Corporation site is going to be? How would their employees or those that are visiting the space access that extensive trail system? What does their parking look like? How are people accessing this new building? Again, this building footprint and even the style of the building is very much determined by the type of architecture that they are looking to do. We know they want to do something that's sort of it's like an industrial / modern approach. But I think once they see that this is the site, or once they select the site, you'll get a more accurate depiction of the kind of building they want to see. Again, you can kind of see the existing tree canopy and how we're preserving this. We did show or recommend a potential restaurant or a commercial use that would be adjacent to the Oshkosh Corporation site, but that development would be in some of this potential open space, and I know we received comments. But you can see how these trails would connect into Mary Jewel Park, how you would also, like number 9, would show a potential trailhead connection for that neighborhood. And those residents would be able to directly access this open space as opposed to using access drives or having to go down to the main sidewalks. And this just gives you an indication of what those potential new uses might look like. If there's a potential gas station at the corner of what is Westfield and Oshkosh Avenue, some potential retail spaces, hotel space. These are the types of things that we know have been recommended in the past or recently, and just trying to give you a sense of if this was redeveloped, these are the types of uses you could anticipate. Where we could, we preserved existing properties, those that we know maybe right now aren't interested in redeveloping or could benefit from Oshkosh Corporation moving in, so the La Quinta or Two Brothers. There are opportunities to keep them in this space, and maybe in the future they could see improvements, or they can exist here in this in this current setting, recommended setting. And then again, just kind of an overview, a look at what that large area of space could be programmed with, the types of elements you could expect, trails, walking paths, open spaces, tree canopies, waterways, those types of things. And then just another pullback, looking at the Heritage Trail and how you could connect that trail to this overall riverfront, or the riverfront trail, and have a nice connected, expansive, or extensive trail system throughout this entire open space. So I'll leave it at that. This is kind of an overview of this model, to give you a sense.
Council, do you have any questions? Councilperson Palmieri.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify something. You were talking about in concept number 1, there would be no additional development, retail, restaurant, et cetera, outside of the corporate campus. However, there's number 4, which is a restaurant that is actually on concept number 1.
No, you're correct. So it's number 17 on this graphic, if you could pull it back up. I know those don't correlate just to the visual. You're correct, I did mean to say, so there is a potential restaurant location recommended. It was something that was mentioned to us by Oshkosh Corporation, but definitely something to consider as we start moving forward.
So
Okay,
they
no.
directed you to put that into concept
They
1?
didn't direct, they just had mentioned that these are the types of amenities that we're looking for. They by no means said, we need it right next to our space. And I think a lot of that could be accommodated by the uses that you would find along Oshkosh Avenue, so.
Okay, thank you.
Just want to make sure everyone knows that any development on Oshkosh Avenue is on private property. There is absolutely no city property involved in whatever goes up there. And I think we've made it very clear that whatever is developed, if it's a hotel, if it's restaurants, they have to be first-class operations. That's a standard that we'll hold developers to, that it's becoming a gateway into the community, and it better reflect the high quality and caliber of the community. So just so everyone knows, there's no public land will be developed on Oshkosh Avenue. Councilman Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, Mr. Davis. The restaurant facility that Ms. Palmieri asked about, that wasn't just put in at Oshkosh, as a suggestion from Oshkosh Corp. That was also put in by you because it would be accessible to, if people were biking.
Sure.
They would be able to, would also be a destination for the general public, correct? So it's not, just to be clear, it's not just for Oshkosh Corp benefit. Well, yes, it does take a little of the green space out, but it would be available for people who were using the park to make a day, in essence, really make a day of going to the park. They could go in the morning, have something to eat later on, and that.
So, and yes, you're correct, and this is the tricky part about this being a concept plan. I think when we were doing the initial concepts and we were starting pulling it together, we know that there is value in there being a restaurant, and that a restaurant could be successful in this space, not just because of Oshkosh Corporation coming in, but also the public and the amount of traffic that you can expect to be in this area. Now, does it happen in this exact location? Probably not, and we'd like to find some other areas where this might work, maybe get it closer to Oshkosh Avenue. But I think the point that we're trying to make with this graphic, although it looks very final, it's not, it's very conceptual, is that program-wise, there's an opportunity for a restaurant of a certain size and a certain caliber that could benefit well from all these different improvements. So yeah, that's it. Important clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If council has no further questions, I will ask the city clerk to begin the public comment period session.
Mayor, we're moving into citizen statements.
Citizen statements.
Ann Marshall, 1120 Olson Avenue. If you would come to the podium, please.
Good evening. The potential redevelopment of the Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course is one of the hot topics on the city's website. I was able to attend the presentation last Wednesday, given by 2 members of the Plan Commission and Parks Advisory Board. And I thank the city for giving that opportunity for the public to attend and to speak to the issue. I try to be objective when looking at issues like this. I have biases, as we all do, but I attempt to recognize those and keep them on the back burner as much as I can. We know that Oshkosh Corporation is looking for a site, and the company, without a doubt, has a huge positive economic impact on this city and the surrounding area. It would have been inexcusable, I think, if GO EDC and the city did not take action when they learned that Oshkosh Corporation was looking at various locations as possible sites for relocation of their main offices. From what I learned at the meeting on Wednesday, about 20 possible locations were taken into consideration, and that only one fits the needs of Oshkosh Corporation, and that's the Lakeshore Golf Course. I agree totally that green space is essential in our community, in any community. The golf course sits on over 100 acres of green space. It is space enjoyed by many people in our community. However, Oshkosh has a population of over 66,000 people, and those who use the golf course, I am quite sure, do not make up even 10% of that number. So I don't consider it at this point public green space. There are 2 relatively small parks, the Rainbow Park and Mary Jewel Park. But as I went by there, I was going out Oshkosh Avenue and looked over at Mary Jewel Park. I remember a little playground there, but it was so bad that nobody went. And now it's a baseball diamond, so it is very small. And the baseball diamond, of course, has limited public use too. If 30 acres or more are sold to Oshkosh Corporation, it leaves 70 acres, as has been said before, of green space that can potentially be developed into a lakeside park for the use of the community. We've seen the 2 concepts now, conceptual ideas, and as was mentioned by Mr., I don't remember who said this, but there were other suggestions about other ways of looking at that conceptual. I don't remember.
Mr. Davis.
Mr. Davis was right regarding.
But anyway, there were other suggestions, and they were good ones to at least look at as possibilities. But of the 2 plans presented by tonight, I by far prefer concept 1, which would be developed into a large park that the entire population of the city would have access to. Having said that, however, one question that came up last Wednesday too is where the money would come from to make that happen. But I won't go into any ideas about that because I don't have any. But I do believe the city needs to continue to make every effort to keep Oshkosh executive offices here. If Oshkosh Corporation does leave the area, there will be surely significant negative consequences to our economic stability. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, who's next?
Rachel Hansen, 344 Oak Manor Drive.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Rachel Hansen, and I'm here representing Propel, which is Oshkosh's Young Professionals Organization. One of Propel's missions and goals is to attract and retain young professionals ages 21 to 40 for local businesses in the Oshkosh area. We accomplish this by hosting events throughout the year that are tailored to meeting both the professional and the social needs of our members. This mission is not only ours, but many leaders within the cities as well. This is why Propel would like to speak in favor of Oshkosh Corporation attaining the Lakeshore property. Oshkosh Corporation is the single-handed largest component of us recruiting and retaining young professionals to this city. If we simply let them walk, it will set back this goal an incomprehensible amount. Young professionals and diverse, global-minded recruits look to a community in their decision-making process. To help prove how much this matters to our demographic and to get some fact-based data, we took the time to prepare and complete a survey of young professionals ages 34 and under. Of the 87 respondents, 72 young professionals responded, "I would like Oshkosh Corp to stay in Oshkosh, even if that means selling Lakeshore Golf Course." So 83% of our surveyed young professionals would like to see Oshkosh Corp stay in Oshkosh. To further economic development, retain jobs, support local small business, and to continue its philanthropic endeavors. As young professionals who live and work in the city of Oshkosh, our future is directly affected if Oshkosh Corp decides to leave. As a representative of Propel Oshkosh Young Professionals, we strongly ask the City Council to vote for the approval of the sale of Lakeshore Golf Course to Oshkosh Corp to protect the integrity of this community and to continue to enhance the future for young professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, who's next?
Kathleen Prop, 1936 Hazel Street.
I'm here to speak in favor of parks. Lakeshore Golf Course is not just golf, it is a park. Parks top anyone's list for quality of life assets. No waterfront public park is a, quote, underutilized, end quote, chunk of land that should be paved over for development, even for Oshkosh Corporation. By the way, I do want to retain Oshkosh Corporation, not just on that site, just not on that site. Lakeshore Golf Course is not struggling, contrary to popular belief. It is popular at 25,000 rounds, well-maintained and drained thanks to the 2,000 renovations, compact but challenging. Golf course revenue essentially covers basic operating expenses. There is no taxpayer levy. However, the Golf Course Enterprise Fund, as you know, owes $800,000 to the general fund due to a huge 2009 balloon debt payment to cover the course drainage improvements, plus annual depreciation. This drainage work was worth every penny. Full disclosure, I do golf. And my name is on the golf course clubhouse, which is why I've got skin in the game. Anyway, the drainage work was worth every penny, should not be viewed solely as a golf course benefit. Without that project, drainage improvements would be essential today to build a buildable parcel, create a buildable parcel for Oshkosh Corporation, or a well-drained community park at a much higher cost. Lakeshore is about the same size, 100 acres, as Menominee Park. All Oshkosh parkland totals only 442 acres, including Lakeshore. But Oshkosh falls well below national standards for a community's parks, open space, and recreation area, which call for 7 to 10 acres per 1,000 population. Oshkosh provides just over 5 acres, not including Lakeshore. If you add the golf course in, I don't know why they didn't, but that's the stats in the report. With the golf course, Oshkosh is still well short. I believe that this prime waterfront public green space should either remain as a golf course or become a community park with its own master plan for recreation facilities. Sale proponents call it a world-class headquarters site. It is also an irreplaceable world-class public park site. If the council proceeds with a proposal to Oshkosh Corporation anyway, I support concept 1 with maximum park acreage and 0 commercial development on golf course land, except for the Oshkosh Corporation headquarters. A parking structure would increase the green space, but public dollars should not be used for it. It was pointed out by the consultant that private land along Oshkosh Ave could certainly serve the commercial function. The city's price should be maximum market value in my opinion, established with advice from outside professionals, not just the city assessor. That amount should be earmarked first for a natural river walk and first-class park improvements for our new Lakeshore Community Park, I'm calling it, as determined by the Parks Board through a master plan. This plan must include an architecturally appealing public bathroom, not the Spartan cookie-cutter bathroom that we have been putting into parks. That's a pet peeve of the Plan Commission. Educated estimates for park improvements should be one factor in the City Council's ultimate decision about price. It hurts a good segment of the community to give up Lakeshore Golf Course, and it hurts to give up 30 acres of waterfront public park. Oshkosh Corporation paying for 70 acres of Lakeshore Community Park improvements at the same time as it builds its headquarters through the sale price would help to heal the division in the community. The Oshkosh Plan Commission will be asked to change the comprehensive land use plan from parks and open space to a commercial designation. I will reluctantly vote yes on a land use change only if concept 1, something like that, is adopted, and only for Oshkosh Corporation. I would vote no on concept 2. If Oshkosh Corporation backs out, I will be voting no for any commercial or residential encroachment on parkland at all. Thank you.
Ms. Prop, just one quick question. Could you run those statistics by again about how many acres that is recommended?
7 to 10 acres per 1,000 population.
Okay.
And Oshkosh has just over 5 acres. This is in the 2011 Parks and Recreation Plan that they are busy updating now. Maybe that'll.
And that figure does not include 2 other large green spaces that fall within the
I don't know why it does not
boundaries
include
of
Lakeshore.
the city of Oshkosh?
This is the city boundaries. This is
City-owned
not-
properties, but
Sure.
there are 2 very large green spaces that do fall within the city of Oshkosh that, unfortunately, because they're under another government entity, they don't fall into that
I don't think the county
calculation.
park would be included in these statistics, but Ray Maurer is here and he can speak for this better than I can. I took that out of the 2011 plan.
The county park is not included in our document. We look at city-owned properties. So if that's
But
one of the properties.
County Park does indeed fall within the city boundaries.
It does, correct.
And then doesn't Asylum Point, part of that fall within?
Now you're testing me if I know the town of
Okay,
Oshkosh
it
or
is,
not.
but
I can't-
County Park, which is a very large green
That is in the
space,
city
is
boundaries,
within the
correct.
city boundaries, but is not a part of our inventory.
Correct.
Okay.
One other question too. I think we're considering a lot of the schools with their large green spaces as a park, not owned by the city, but they're owned by the school district.
Those are not incorporated into the city's numbers
Right.
as well. But
Right.
those are part of some of the neighborhood play areas as well as some of their opportunities, yes.
Pam, who's next? Thank you.
David Borsick. And Mr. Borsick, could you just confirm your address, please?
1205.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to speak in favor of the offering of Lakeshore Golf Course to the Oshkosh Corporation. Some questions are complicated and nuanced. This is comparatively simple, but no less difficult. The choice is, do we offer Lakeshore Golf Course to the Oshkosh Corporation for the opportunity for them to remain in Oshkosh? Or do we not offer the golf course and have Oshkosh Corporation leave our community? I strongly support the offering of the golf course so that Oshkosh Corp may choose to remain in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam?
Jonathan Damo, 455 Zarling Ave.
Hello again. You know, I had a speech prepared, but a lot of people call me a rogue commenter, so I'm going to do that. I just want to draw your attention to a symbol right behind you, and the color of that, and the symbol of Oshkosh on the water. It's not a tree. Our biggest park is blue. Our biggest park is the river and the lake. And right now, it's kind of hard to get that access. And I understand the love for the golf course. I've got friends and family that are telling me, come on, please save Lakeshore. I'm asking you to save Oshkosh. This is bigger than that. I mean, we're talking about a huge corporation. By the way, I am the new chairman of the board of directors for your Chamber of Commerce, the unpolished, overcommitted pizza man. And I need to point out to you that the entire NFL did $13 billion in sales last year. Oshkosh Corp did 6.3. What would we do to put Lambeau Field on Lakeshore? This is less space than that with a larger economic impact. I'm not going to get into the philanthropy and what they donate to our food pantry, because that's huge too. I collect food for the food pantry. It took me an entire year to do 4,000 pounds. They donated 17 grand in a day. I mean, this is giant. This is beyond golf. And I get it, like I understand wanting to save it. I've been called a lot of different names because I fought to save the racetrack. Well, there's only one of them around here. And a lot of people that go to the races they can't even afford golf clubs. That's why I fought for that. But this is different. I would love to be able to take my daughters there and not pay green fees just to walk around, to be able to have a picnic and enjoy my blue park. And unless you want to turn that symbol into a tree, I would consider doing everything you can to give us access to that waterfront and to keep Oshkosh Corp here. Because I would love a 69 GTO that gets 38 miles a gallon. Doesn't exist. Neither does another location for Oshkosh Corp to stay here. I have a better chance of getting a 69 GTO with 38 miles a gallon than getting Oshkosh Corp anywhere else. It doesn't make sense for them as a business. It makes sense for them to move somewhere between Baltimore and DC where these contracts are made. I mean, it's being rushed right now, and I understand that. It's because the writing is on the wall, guys. Like, Mark, and I can't address Mark, but I don't blame him for throwing that Hail Mary pass. We probably should have been aware of this when their board meeting wasn't held at EAA anymore. When was their first board meeting in Chicago? That should have been the writing on the wall. But we can't armchair quarterback this. We can't. Game plan goes out the window. It's time for Rodgers to drop back and throw that Hail Mary, and hopefully someone comes down with it. That's you guys. You guys got to throw that ball. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, who is next?
Rob Hartley, 1711 Panoqua Street.
Rob Hartley, 1711 Panoqua, as you said, and hello again. I've spoken to the council meeting a few times before about the golf course. And as a matter of fact, what I'm here to speak about is something a little bit different than what everyone else has here, and that's a proposal that I sent to each one of you on your email. And by the way, thank you for your response on each one. If anyone here doesn't know, the proposal is to incorporate the golf course, Lakeshore Golf Course, into the present 70 acres that would be left. And I have procured the free help of golf course designers, including Mr. Detloff, who is at the present time in Scotland right now, helping to design a golf course there. He originally grew up at Lakeshore, and he is very, very excited about the possibility of redesigning. And I had a conversation with him over the weekend, and these are a couple of the ideas that he came up with. I was very excited. That's the only reason that I'm here to talk to you. He said that he can take holes that are presently on the course and convert them, saving the greens, saving the tee boxes for cost effectiveness. He said many courses in the country now are combining the front nine and the back nine. What they're doing is they're offering alternative greens, dividing the green in half, having two different tee boxes going to the same green. My first comment is somebody's going to end up dead for sure out there with the golf balls flying around and that kind of thing. They said the logistics is no problem at all. It's been worked out in many large cities. It's been worked out by corporations. It started in Japan. Obviously, very little land to work with there, and so it started in Japan. Here's a couple of the idea. First of all, was the overlapping. You use the core holes that are there right now. For example, number 14, if anyone knows, is on the far east side, right along Rainbow Park. That hole could be converted to a 5 and a 4 using one more tee box set off on the side. I have the plans that'll be coming to you very shortly. Another possibility is that you would have the far west side of the course. You would have smaller par 3s, which would allow what they call a pitch and putt, so that someone could come in, grandpa with his grandsons could come in and play 3, 4, 5 holes and end up back at the, restaurant, i.e. clubhouse. Great thing for it there, everyone. We have a nice new restaurant there. We could turn it into an access or a helpful area for the golf course itself. Those are just 3 ideas that they had brought up, and I really, really thought that they were extremely important. They also brought up the idea, if this can be done, they can incorporate biking trails, hiking trails, fishing piers. All of that can be incorporated with a multi-use golf course. We can have our cake and eat it too, people. Oshkosh Truck can have the 30 acres and we can have an absolutely fantastic recreational area around it. Instead of having no golf course, no Oshkosh Truck, let's put our heads together and figure out something that'll work together. I have free consultants that are willing to help and willing to work out here. I've heard from so many people that a golf course is not a park, and this is not a park because they can't walk out on it. Let's make it a park. Let's prove them wrong. Let's make Lakeshore a comfortable place for this gentleman to take his children in the afternoon and go for a walk along the river, and it can be done. Tree lines, fences, berms. These 2 gentlemen are putting their heads together and are going to offer us a free plan that's fantastic. Keep it in mind, please, and I will keep every one of you updated by email. Thank you very much.
Matt Mugarar, 2321 Golden Avenue.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me a few minutes to speak. Just a few quick points without reiterating what most people have said already or at other last meeting or in the public meetings over at the convention center. One, Mr. Roloff, City Manager Roloff, was absolutely doing his job. Without a clear directive from the council to do or not to do something, he has the authority, and in fact, the implied directive to protect this community. Municipal Code, Chapter 2 even says it. City manager shall have the following duties and responsibilities: protection of the health, safety, and welfare of this community. I absolutely think that this falls under the protection of welfare of this community for the impact that this corporate headquarters and this company in general has on it. If not for City Manager Roloff contacting the corporation in regards to their search status, we wouldn't even be in the running. We wouldn't even be having this discussion. We'd be losing the corporate headquarters, just guaranteed, period. At least, at this point, we have an option to offer to them, if council so sees fit, of course. But without that contact, we wouldn't even be having the conversation. We'd be saying, how did this happen? We'd be armchair quarterbacking it. Why didn't anyone do anything to stop it? 2, the golf course is a business. It's not a parkland. The city even looks at it that way with it being an enterprise fund. It's meant to be self-sufficient. Unfortunately, due to poor management over many years, they've been not able to pay down the debt associated with it, nor have they charged an appropriate rate to properly fund their operations. If this was a private business, it would have been foreclosed upon for non-repayment of debt or sold off to a new owner. You can only access the property by paying for a service, and you're prohibited from entering the property without doing so. It doesn't sound like much of a park to me. Now, I know the origins of the course. It was to provide the citizens of Oshkosh with access to affordable golfing in comparison to the time of the Oshkosh Country Club. But the thing is, over the last 100 years, several other public courses are now in direct competition with them. And I don't think it's in the city's best interest or in their purview to be in direct competition with a private entity to provide these non-essential services. Finally, By selling a portion of this land for the development of the Oshkosh Corporation's corporate headquarters, you have the ability to open up the remaining 70-plus acres of land for all 66,000-plus people in Oshkosh to use, instead of holding 100-plus acres hostage for a small percentage of people who may or may not be from Oshkosh. Thank you.
Pam, who's next?
We have no further individuals registered for the beginning. You did, Mr. Elliott. I have you registered at the end. Okay, come on up to the front then, sir. You're welcome. Elliott, let me find his name. Sean Elliott, 2875 Foxtail Lane.
Thank you. I apologize again for the
No
confusion.
worries.
Good evening. My name is Sean Elliott, and I'm Vice President of Advocacy and Safety at EAA here in Oshkosh. I'm also a 20-year-plus resident of Oshkosh, residing at 2875 Foxtail Lane. I was recruited by EAA and moved here from Florida in 1996. My family and I are proud to call Oshkosh our home. I'm here on behalf of EAA in support of the Oshkosh Corporation tonight. In order to thrive and grow, Oshkosh as a city and a community must be welcoming to opportunities. We at EAA can relate to this. Many of you might remember that EAA and the Fly-In and Convention actually didn't always exist in Oshkosh. In fact, throughout the 1950s and 1960s, it was based in Rockford, Illinois. In 1969, Rockford, Illinois passed on a plan to retain a then much smaller EAA Fly-In. Local leaders here in Oshkosh sensed an opportunity and welcomed EAA to this community. We are proud to have put Oshkosh on the global aviation map, as millions now refer to Oshkosh as the mecca of their aviation universe. Oshkosh has been EA's hometown now for nearly a half a century, while Rockford city leaders will tell you that they regret the actions of their predecessor years ago. It is important as a community to not take these circumstances and moments for granted, regardless from where they come, nor can we as a community and its leadership inflict wounds on the great things we now have that could drive them away. It's essential to put our best foot forward in these circumstances. There are many cities that eagerly stand ready to welcome opportunities that build their future visions. Those cities are prepared to make their move when others are unable or unwilling to do so. We hope that city leaders will see what opportunities exist now and never take them for granted. These windows of opportunity are open only for a short while and may not come again. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
I would like
Pam.
to say to that, I was late in my comments, it was in line with all this, and I was later in the program.
Mayor, we do have some individuals that are signed up for 26, so there may be some confusion that we want them to.
It's different than this one. How is 26 different than this?
It's a service agreement.
It's a service agreement, but we can, if the council so wishes, we can have those individuals speak now.
Moving forward.
Sir, is this in reference to the concept plans?
It's in reference to
Okay.
the lakeshore idea that we're talking.
I think it would be germane then.
Okay.
Moving forward.
Okay.
I'm
Yep.
Tom Bauer.
You'll need to fill out a form with the
No,
officer.
no, he
Oh,
did,
on-
yes,
Okay, just the wrong.
yes, just the wrong number. So Tom Bauer, 1338 Winnebago Ave. Just come up to the podium. Thank you.
With everything that's been said, I just want to add a couple of things from what I've observed. I'm a little trouble with the green space concept from the standpoint of, I think its value is being a little overestimated. I live near Menominee Park. We bike through Menominee Park, my wife and I, quite often. It's not exactly teeming with people. It's empty a lot. There's a lot of, I'm thinking of 2 or 3 large green areas that usually nobody's doing anything on. So it's one thing to talk about having green space. It's another thing, are people using the green space that's available? I think we have we have 2 very nice parks. County Park is within a reasonable distance to do things with. So I don't think that it all trumps the importance of keeping the Oshkosh Corporation here. And one thought that I had when I went out to see the folk and I got a sign for myself was the Oshkosh Corporation has earned this property. They have been here for 100 years. They've had tremendous growth. And you ask yourself, well, how many, we have a Fortune 500 company, how many Fortune 500 companies have a world headquarters in a city this size? 40. 40 out of the 500 are an approximate Oshkosh population, which makes this very special. We have the EAA, I looked up before I got here, 200,000 worldwide members, 1,000 chapters, and the world headquarters is here in this city. And with the Oshkosh Corporation, that's two, I consider them our twin towers, and the Oshkosh Corporation by far number one as far as importance to our community. I trust them that they would do everything possible to enhance the area, but they deserve this property, and it's the only one they're considering, and I think they've earned it. And we as a community, when we drive by there on 41 heading south and look at this beautiful building that they're going to put up there, I'm sure it's going to be just fabulous. That building is going to become the face of this city. It'll be coming down, it'll be so noticeable. This is what people will remember, and that we can all take pride in this. So I would like to just piggyback on some of the others in stressing the importance of keeping this company here. And I'd go so far as, this will sound crazy, I'd have them buy 30 acres and I'd throw in 10 more. I'm saying to them, we value you. We want you here. It's a gift. And that it's that important compared to, I know the golf course is important, but this is just so much more so as far as the overall effect on our community and in the valley itself. So I'm hoping that something can be worked out that they will stay here. I think they want to stay here. I've talked to a few people in the company. I think they want to stay here. But as has been said, they have a lot of offers. And for them to stay in a community of this size, it would be very special for us. And I think they want to stay here. Let's make that happen. Thank you.
Okay, Bill Miller, 3322 Isaac Lane.
Thank you for the time. Mr. Olaf, thank you. We don't always agree on things, but if it wasn't for you, I think we wouldn't be having Oshkosh Truck here, so thank you. I want to clarify some facts. The golf course isn't a park. It's a golf course. It's posted out there, no trespassing. So if you don't pay, you can't play. So it's a defunct business. It doesn't make money, and I want to clarify some other numbers. Some people throw out some figures that the golf course owes the city fund approximately $800,000. They don't. They owe us $1.4 million. The city chunked down some debt a few years back to make some numbers work out, but it's, am I right, Mr. Olaf? Is it about 1.4 million?
There was a number presented to the Parks Board and Plan Commission. The council received that last week.
So 17 years ago, the Parks Board promised this city council and the citizens to repay that money. It passed with a 6-0 resolution. We have paid back exactly $0 to this city. That is a terrible use of taxpayer money. 17 years ago, we asked you guys for $1.5 million, and we promised to pay it back. We haven't paid you back a nickel. We haven't paid the taxpayers back a nickel. This thing loses money every single year. And I can't thank you enough for your comments. I mean, truckers are in this land. If it were up to me, I'd give them the land and as much more as they want. Think about this. Morgan, Bradford, Leach, Bagash, Buckstaff, on and on and on about these manufacturing jobs leaving town. It's insane. I don't know why we're even considering this. These are 500 corporate paying jobs with an average income of $103,000 per person. Hell, if they want to take the whole golf course, they can have it. I don't know why we're even considering this. This is absolute insanity. What would we be giving them to come here if we didn't have them? What would we be shelling out to get them to come here? 10 times more than what we're offering the guy that's been taking care of us for the last 100 years. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Peterson, 1545 Arboretum Drive.
Hi. I just wanted to, of course, be in support of what Oshkosh Corp wants to do, and I just wanted to talk from a little bit different perspective. I'm in the school district. I've been a teacher for a long time. We talk a lot about the impact that on our kids. And I just have to say what they have done is coming into the classroom and really engaging our students in some opportunities that we haven't really had before. And what they have done is open the door for all of the other partners in the community to say, oh yeah, I want to do the same. I want to be a part of it. So not only is Oshkosh Corp leading the way and coming into the classroom, donating dollars, providing STEM activities, making sure that kids are aware of what they do, letting kids in and seeing the trucks and being a part of it. Yeah, there's a couple of closed areas, but they have been very, very welcoming and open to engage our students. And I think that's really an important piece that I don't want to be overlooked. And again, what that has done is it has given the kind of the green light for every other company, manufacturing or otherwise, to say, how do I get involved in that? I want to be a part of that. I want that K-12 system to be really impacted by what we're doing. And to say Fox Valley Tech and UWO, they're engaged at their level as well. So I want to make sure that's really relevant. Just what they're giving back is really an important piece. And then the other thing I just want to mention is I am just super excited because the opportunities that are about to face Oshkosh are just unbelievable. The things that are going to want to come here, because there's this beautiful building on 41. I was the golf coach at Oshkosh West for years. I love Lakeshore. The opportunities of what we can bring to this community for somebody my age is like, I don't ever have to leave. Everything that I want to do is going to be right in Oshkosh. So I think that there's some excitement out there from people. I appreciate Rachel's comments from Propel talking about the millennials and the younger generation. What do they want? We want to have fun. We want to do things right in our community. I don't want to drive to Appleton. I don't want to drive to Green Bay. I want it to be right here in Oshkosh. And I think the opportunities are, they're just starting of what we can do, and I don't want the momentum to stop in Oshkosh. We've done so many things in the last 20 years since I've been here, and this is just another thing that keeps pushing it forward. So keep in mind the kids, the K-12, the impact, them getting in the classroom and showing kids all of the amazing things that they can do. When they walk into Oshkosh Corp, they go, I could work here. And this is a global company, that's pretty amazing. And then look at it as an exciting time for Oshkosh to just grow and bring all these amazing things, and people are gonna really prosper. So it's very exciting. So I highly encourage you to invite Oshkosh Corp to the Lakeshore site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Weston, 2550 Lamplight Court.
Hello. Thank you for moving me up. Didn't want to have to sit through the rest of the meeting.
We
Appreciate this a lot. Thank you. Speaking on behalf of the idea to turn the golf course into a business park, waterfront park, and a potential headquarters for Oshkosh Corporation, which I think is a win for everyone in this city, including the people that want to save Lakeshore Golf Course. Whether they know it or not, this will benefit the city for now and into the foreseeable future if we're able to retain Oshkosh Corp here in the city of Oshkosh. I think it'll be really neat to have the water access, to have the park access, as well as, of course, maintain Oshkosh Corp here as well. I did have a lot more stuff to say, but a lot of the people that have been up here before me have stole my thunder. but so be it. A great idea, really look forward to this happening. I think it would be spectacular for our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Jamison, 431 Marion Road.
Good evening. I'm speaking to you this evening representing a few different perspectives. That of a lifelong Oshkosh citizen, an Oshkosh Corporation supplier, and as a volunteer with a number of local nonprofit organizations. Oshkosh Corporation's headquarters, wherever it is located, is more than a building. To be sure, it is the epicenter of the company's efforts to provide direct employment to thousands. It is the hub of the company's outreach to thousands of supply chain partners. And in turn, there are thousands of employees. It is the base from which corporate leaders decide on enormous philanthropic undertakings that benefit our entire region. It is the location of a Fortune 500 company, one of only 9 in the state of Wisconsin. It is the location where business takes place. The business of guiding an organization that literally saves the lives of warfighters, firefighters, and so many more. It is one of the primary locations that makes the city of Oshkosh a first-class city. Oshkosh Corporation's reach, facilitated by its headquarters personnel, affects the lives of almost every citizen in this community. Lakeshore Golf Course, no matter how anyone feels about it, including me, does not have that effect. It just doesn't. There are more than 145 suppliers just in the city of Oshkosh that support the work of Oshkosh Corporation. Oshkosh Corporation's employment base is already enormous for a city of our size. Now take into account the number of our fellow citizens employed by those 145 suppliers. The number of individuals and families impacted by that organization is enormous. Extrapolate that number and account for all the services, industries, retail, restaurants, and others frequented by those affected by those individuals, and all the individuals impacted by those entities. What if we got this headquarters issue resolved? What could we do for all the citizens of Oshkosh? How could we grow with an expanded premier Fortune 500 world headquarters in the city of Oshkosh? What could we do for employment? What could we do for amenities? What could we do for infrastructure? What could we do collectively for our citizens, our families, our community, our Oshkosh? My calculations, so I apologize if they're 1 or 2% off, but I think I'm fairly close here. 92% of all Fortune 500 companies are located in cities of more than 70,000 people and within a 45-mile radius of a city proper with 450,000 people. Oshkosh, then, is one of only 8% of cities that host a Fortune 500 company headquarters, which falls below that threshold. Are we willing to give that up? For what are we willing to give that up? For a moment, putting on my hat as a supporter of the Boys and Girls Club, which is just one of the huge number of organizations Oshkosh Corporation supports. We could not be as effective as we are. We could not change lives. We could not save lives, but for the support of organizations like Oshkosh Corp. And Oshkosh Corp is the leader. They get it. They make it happen for our club kids. The individuals who make those decisions reside at the headquarters location. They see the impact on our club kids. They invest in the impact on our club kids. And I would really like to keep them seeing it up close and personal. Because when they do, they help our staff make miracles happen. I have golfed at Lakeshore many times. Both of my sons golf varsity for Oshkosh West High School. Nicole was the coach for my older son, which utilizes Lakeshore as its home course. My boys and I have had a number of terrific experiences on that course. We do have great memories, but each new day is an opportunity to create new memories. Most experiences in life are better looking forward, not back. My hope for my children and someday grandkids is that they have the opportunity to grow and raise a family in a city that continues to be a thriving, exciting, prosperous place. A strong economy, great resources to provide for a family, and the opportunity to thrive in a creative and technology-driven community does this. Golf courses can add to prosperity. They do not in themselves create it. Thank you.
Brett Spangler, 841 Cherry Street.
Let's assume that these people are right and that it is the only spot for them in the entire city. And if that's true, that means in 25 to 50 years, when they need a new headquarters, they're not even stopping on their way out of the city because we have nowhere else to put them. We're just delaying, I don't know, for 25 to 50 more years, depending on how long they have their headquarters. And people my age and younger will be stuck with less land, no company, a building no one else will be able to use because it's so large, and the demolition costs of said building. It's basically like the granary on steroids, and I don't know, it's really unfortunate for people my age and younger who are gonna have to live through all of that. So, you know, I turn 20 next Monday, and sometimes I'm afraid all you see is a kid who's in over his head, but I'm not. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that you're negotiating from a place of extreme weakness. You've been backed into a corner and you have this deadline that keeps changing from the middle of November to the end of October. And just to recap, we don't know where the money would go, who would pay for the infrastructure, where else Oshkosh Corp is looking, and we have a due date threat from a company that supposedly loves us. Good deals don't happen when you have absolutely no leverage. Another thing that I want to say is just the silence from Oshkosh Corp is somewhat deafening because we haven't heard anything at all publicly from them. They haven't been at the meetings. There's been the one statement after it was announced that we were offering it up to them, but it just seems like they're making every effort to leave while we destroy our future to appease them. And who's to say that they won't be bought out either? The risk reward is simply not there. And it's unfortunate because we look at how this animosity is seeping into other parts of the government, and you know, now we're so worried about perception and how we look that that poor professor had to move to a next meeting. It's just unfortunate, and I just encourage you to think farther than the next re-election. Thank you.
Pam?
Kurt Spalding, 1456 Maricopa Drive.
Good evening. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to come up here and talk a little bit. Following some pretty tough acts there, a lot of really good points, and I've got a little different perspective than most people, being a lifelong resident of Oshkosh, lifelong golfer at Lakeshore, as well as some of the other courses in town, and at one time was a manager in the golf profession at Lakeshore. So a lot of these things are near and dear to my heart. The city of Oshkosh is number one. We, as I've heard from everybody, cannot afford to lose Oshkosh Corp. They are very, very, very important to our community in more than one way than an employer, but also philanthropically. And, you know, and for all the reasons that have been stated, very important to keep them here. As I heard tonight with Mr. Davis, it sounds like this is the only viable site in Oshkosh, would be Lakeshore Golf Course. Obviously, Lakeshore Golf Course is very near dear to my heart as well. Hate to see that leave us in any capacity other than a golf course. Oshkosh Corp has been around 100 years. Lakeshore Golf Course has been around almost 100 years. So You know, so it's a tough thing, but we do need to keep Oshkosh Corp in Oshkosh. If that is something that can be done by offering Lakeshore, I support that. Hate to say that, but I think that's something that is very important, that we keep them as a backbone to our community financially and for all those other reasons. I guess kind of skipping a few things, had some notes prepared, but if Oshkosh Corp's only option is to keep the golf course, I guess, what is the time frame for construction? Is that something that would start next year? You know, those are things that all have to be determined yet. Is it possible the golf course, if they're not looking at fast tracking it, is going to go further? It sounds like because of the deadlines, it probably is something that would happen next year. When the golf course does disband, there are a number of people that have had markers and whatnot put out as memorials for them. We want to make sure that we get those things taken care of for those people, trees, benches, markers, things like that. So very important to keep that. If it is called Lakeshore Park or whatever it may be in the future, you know, I think people that have had the history there and donated those things would probably be in favor. I know I did. I've got something there for my mom. Would be in favor of having it kept on that parkland when it, you know, becomes available that way. One final thing that I'd like to say, if there is another alternative that Oshkosh Corp does decide to take in Oshkosh, I hope that in the future the golf course would go, I guess, as far as being offered the proper direction, where it goes in front of all the citizens of Oshkosh to say, hey, you know, we want to vote on this. So have a referendum or whatnot. Don't just have it put out there that it is something that we're willing to part with to keep it here. So I think a referendum in the future, if this is not the case, needs to happen. I would implore you all to consider that in the future, that we don't just say, okay, now we got another company looking to get, or another little business that wants to take it over. You know, let's make sure if this isn't Oshkosh Corp, we keep it golf course unless the whole community has a vote and says, let's get rid of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lawrence Carlin, 2803 Stony Beach Street.
Good evening, council members. I'm here for two reasons, and I'll be brief. Number one, to express my support for Oshkosh Corporation and the sale and development of the Lakeshore property. As council members, you will have many questions with respect to this matter, but there will be one overarching question, and that is, what is best for Oshkosh? And of course, your answer to this question should be based on a rational consideration of the arguments brought to bear on the issue. But it seems to me that what is best for Oshkosh is clear. Oshkosh employs thousands of people. The golf course doesn't do that. Oshkosh Corporation brings millions of dollars to restaurants, hotels, retailers in the region. The golf course doesn't do that. Oshkosh Corporation brings invaluable support to our community organizations, United Way, Big Brothers Big Sisters, YMCA, our school districts, the community pantry, and so many more. The golf course doesn't do that. If we let this opportunity go, it would be devastating for our city. If we let the golf course go, a few people wouldn't be able to golf there anymore. But if we sell to Oshkosh Corporation, if we offer them the development of Lakeshore, we'll create an even bigger economic impact and even more support for our community programs. Retaining the golf course will not do that and could not do that. Finally, we sometimes hear arguments to the effect that Oshkosh Corporation should build elsewhere in the city or elsewhere in the region. These arguments seem to ignore the fact that Oshkosh Corporation is in a competitive situation. They need to build to retain and attract talent. Put yourself in their shoes for a moment. You're not going to build elsewhere knowing that it is not the sort of site needed to compete, to attract and retain a talented workforce. So clearly, it seems to me the considerations in favor of offering Lakeshore to Oshkosh Corporation outweigh the arguments for retaining the golf course by a long shot. I encourage you to join me, my neighbors, and many others in business, education, and the nonprofit sectors supporting Oshkosh Corporation and the development of Lakeshore. This is an exciting time for our community. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's a moment of historical importance. Which brings me to my next point. Thank you all. Big moments of this sort, I've lived here long enough to know that big moments of this sort come with a lot of work, a lot of ink to paper, lots of discussions, lots of meetings, lots of listening to people like me. So please know that your service is appreciated and supported, and I hope you in turn will appreciate and support Oshkosh Corporation by offering Lakeshore for development. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam?
I have no further individuals registered, but you may want to ask.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this issue? Would you please get a sign-in sheet from the officer when you come up?
Thanks for hearing me. My name is Tim Schissel. I'm a lifelong resident of Oshkosh, and I would like to start out by pointing out that this is not a binary choice. Oshkosh recognized 19 other sites. We can keep Oshkosh Corp and our golf course. Now, I would give our city manager a big round of applause if he had taken Oshkosh Corp and persuaded them to rebuild on some of the land we've designated as rebuildable land. And if this is a private company, why can't they should be purchasing their own land like every other private company does. The golf course should have never been recommended as a choice. That's low-hanging fruit. What if I propose we sell Oshkosh Oshkosh Golf Course to an even bigger, better company? There's always a bigger fish, you know? They're not the best. Besides, how long has it been since they did a major layoff? And what if they do get bought out? They are a gamble. They have no commitment to our community. Besides, as a corporate citizen, they are blackmailing us again for the second time. That's bullying. That's not a good citizen. And the whole thing is that it's a gamble. Companies like Leach and Buckstaff come and go all the time. Our park is an institution, something that's here forever. An institution. And speaking of which, second other employers in the city are the city of Oshkosh is a big employer, and so is the university. I say if we want to give this to anybody, we give this to the city or we give it to the university. An institution we know will be here and one that's committed to us. Oshkosh Corporation keeps threatening to move. We should listen to them. They want to move. Let's rip that bandage off, let them move. They should probably be in Pennsylvania anyway. And with every instance like this comes opportunity. Whenever a company moves, companies move in. Some city gets that company. Hopefully our city will get that EAA when it moves from another place because we are a jewel of a city. It's so appealing to pick that jewel because it's so visible out there on the highway. It is only a jewel because it was preserved by our forefathers for us to use as a park and a golf course. And golf courses, this makes money more than, and it does have many, many more people from sun up to sundown utilize this park as opposed to any of the other parks. I'll bet none of them compare. I really am a little bit too passionate about this. This really upsets me that private business should be able to pick a community's jewel like this. And I stand in opposition, especially because it's a risk. They get bought out. They're gone, and they keep telling you that they don't want to stay. That's their threat.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council at this time? Yes. Could you please fill out a form of the officer?
My name is Gerald Anklin, 1402 River Street. Good evening. I'm going to go a little different route on this.
Because I look at Oshkosh Corporation and they're spending a lot of money to build headquarters. But sometimes I wonder about this. Are they going in the right direction doing this? Ever hear of lean manufacturing? Number one rule is every dollar you spend has to have a return. So I question their decision. Do they really need a large headquarters on expensive land? Or do you take that money and you use it for development of future product and product development? And what goes with that? Machining, robots, etc., that will put them in a world class to beat the next bid that they have to submit for a next large order. Now, that's the bottom line out there is dollar and cents, and they are on the top of the hill right now. But how many companies do you think that are out there are working hard, very hard, but probably not very elaborate headquarters, but they got a workforce working on their product development, working on their next product that will take them off of that hill, take Oshkosh Corporation off that hill. Now you have to think about that. You know, I had some training in lean manufacturing. That's the number one thing they preached over and over and over again. And what you invest has to have a return. So I kind of question this, and people say, well, they need a world-class facility to attract people. You know what attracts people? Pay. If you're willing to pay them well, you will attract them to this area. That's the bottom line, especially skilled trades, skilled people, management, and lean manufacturing is something that I have found out large corporations struggle with. I've only worked for one company in my lifetime that actually we used lean manufacturing to an extent that we were starting to make it very difficult for our competition. I was working for a company, we bid on a large order in New York City. And there was a company out there that was so locked in with the people of New York that they were actually threatened by us at that time. And bottom line is, word leaked out on the bid, I believe, and that company that I worked for, we got bumped out of that order. But we were so close to it, it was hard to see, leave. So that's my word for tonight. I wasn't going to say anything. But people, and one thing I mentioned, and one thing I heard, that if they build this new corporate headquarters, it would attract 200 more jobs. Ever hear that? Read it in the paper. And then I wonder, 200 more jobs? If you have 200 more people in your headquarters, you better have a product output matching that. Otherwise, you're going to be called top heavy. And there's a big corporation in this area right now that's cutting 500 administrative jobs throughout their corporation, it's on the internet, to bring their cost in line because they're top heavy. So that's a big corporations have to remember that. You know, I'd rather work for a company that works out of a shoebox than a large fancy headquarters, because the bottom line is pay and job security. If you have a product that's attractive, dependable, cost effective, beat your competition, dollar and cents, you have that bid. Thank you.
I see no one else wishing to speak to the council at this time. So there's been a recommendation by some of the council members that we take a few-minute break before we go into consent agenda. So,
10 minutes. Quarter after?
We'll reconvene a quarter after.
All right.
The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly.
I don't know anymore. I gotta get up in like 6 hours.
Would you please be quiet so we can continue the meeting? This is not a cocktail party.
I would hope, yeah.
It should be.
It's not?
It will be. We're now at the point of the consent agenda, which are those items of routine administrative nature that are voted on by the council in a single roll call vote. Staff recommends approval of all items. Any member of the public or common council may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for discussion. Pam, is there anyone that, from the public, that would like to speak to any of these items on the consent agenda?
I have no one registered.
Okay. So I will bring it back to the council then for a motion and a second.
I would move consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? I see no lights lighting up, so would you please take the roll?
Herman.
Aye.
Pansky.
Aye.
Krause.
Aye.
Pack.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6.
There are no items removed from the consent agenda, so we're on to new ordinances. First is 15A, ordinance 17-495, approve intermediate attachment of properties from Town 11 of Algoma, effective March 1, 2018, per approved cooperative plan, Zone B, generally located north of State Road 21, west of US 91. West of US Highway 41, south of State Road 21. And there will be no action taken on this item this evening. Was there anyone that wanted to speak to this, Pam?
Nobody is registered.
Okay, the next is ordinance 17-499. Again, there'll be no formal action taken on this item tonight. Approve zone change from SMU Suburban Mixed Use District to SMU PD Suburban Mixed Use District with planned development overlay located at 33001 South Washburn Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Pam, was there anyone that wanted to speak to this item?
No one is registered.
And again, the
I didn't register, I keep close talk to the manager, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
okay, thank you. Apparently, there's no questions from the council. We have one pending resolution, which is Resolution 17-500, approved developers agreement for Ripple Avenue Estates, 3900 block of Oregon Street. Pam, there's anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item?
No one is registered for this item.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Herman.
Aye.
Pansky.
Aye.
Krause.
Aye.
Pack.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6.
We have 3 new resolutions. The first is Resolution 17-501, approve specific implementation plan amendment for placement of an electric vehicle charging station At 2415 Westtown Avenue, Plan Commission recommends approval. Pam, is there anyone who registered to speak to this?
I have no one registered.
I will bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Herman?
Aye.
Pansky?
Aye.
Krause?
Aye.
Peck?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 6.
Next, we have Resolution 17-502, approve employee health insurance agreement with Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield and Dental Insurance. Pam, is there anyone that would like to speak to this resolution?
No one is registered.
We'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Councilperson Palmieri.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Fitzpatrick, could you give us a kind of a little bit more of a synopsis on this? And then I also have a question. You might answer this in that description. So it's my understanding that the university is no longer going to be offering Anthem to its employees.
Okay.
I don't know if it was a performance issue or benefits issues, but in any event, just curious if in this proposal for our health insurance to go with Anthem, or to look at Anthem, whether or not we compared notes.
We didn't. I didn't have any discussions with the university. I haven't worked for the state for a little while, but I know that when I did, that they participate through the state of Wisconsin's group health insurance program, and I know they've had different variants of that. So the process that they undergo when they determine who the providers are within a county, changes periodically. I suspect that might have had something to do with their situation. But we operated independently. We went through an RFP process. We took a look at a variety of different options, and it really came down to our existing provider, which was Group Health Trust, Wisconsin Counties Association. They did a fine job for us these past 2 years, and we one of the other finalists was Network Health. They had a very competitive bid, and Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. They were the other finalists that made the list. And in terms of the cost savings associated with our final selection, we ended up, actually the employee committee took a look at our RFP process, assessed some of the circumstances associated with it, took a look at our employee participation with the vendors as well, and they recommended also for us to consider Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. They made that recommendation to City Manager Roloff. And so, to make a long story short, we were able to, they made that recommendation to City Manager Roloff. He took a look at it and thought that, and agreed with their recommendation that Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield provided us the most savings, in addition to the least disruption for our employee population and their current providers.
That's a pretty significant savings, right?
It is. It's approximately $400,000, a little less than that. So we were very pleased to receive that offer from them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Herman.
You want to speak first? Just one more thing, because I think Councilmember Palmieri's question is valid. John answered the question that we didn't specifically talk to the university, but Associated Benefits, which is our consultant, they do review these things. And Anthem does not have the highest grade. I don't know why the university dropped them. I can't speak to that. But we brought that, the fact that they weren't at the highest rating, we brought that to the committee, and even with that, they still felt it was better. We know because it wasn't as highly rated as Group Health Trust. We were very pleased with Group Health Trust for the most part. So we know that may be a drawback to the plan, and we've talked to the employees about that. We had a virtual meeting with them and explained that. So I wanted to make sure that you heard that, because you may find out later on that the university did change for a reason that may have to do with service, And if we have that, we're gonna bring that to their attention. But that's what Associated does for us. They make sure if we're having issues with the performance, that they will get on the provider, in this case, Anthem, to make sure that they're fulfilling, being a good servicer of our employees.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, Group Health Trust, when we went with them 2 years ago, they helped with the clinic in some capacity, I believe, correct?
They did, yeah.
Do we have, is there any impact here with the clinic that we
No.
have in partnership with the county and the school district?
No, there won't be an impact to the clinic, as a matter of fact. I'm glad you brought that up. The Group Health Trust provided $200,000 for the operation of the clinic. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield has agreed to provide that same amount.
Oh, okay, very good. Was that in here? I missed, if I might have
It's
missed
on the
it.
bottom of the RFP, right underneath their.
Okay, all right.
Right underneath their proposal. It's in real small print. So if you look
Okay.
right under the percentage, it's listed there. It should.
All right, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just kind of dovetailing City Manager Roloff's comments. How does this plan affect our employees? I mean, are their rates going to go down too, or their deductibles going down? A few odds and ends before. I know it's a budget issue more than anything. but
Sure.
Just
No,
a little bit of
I'd be happy to
information.
talk about that. The premium will go down slightly. The monthly premium will go down slightly for our employees. The plan design is very, very similar. There's very little change at all with the plans. And that was part of the RFP process. We asked them to look at our plan design and provide their offers based on our existing plan design. So there should be very minimal impact for our employees. I mentioned about the providers. Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield has providers that service approximately 70% of our employees right now. So there will be a little disruption for those employees that have relationships with providers that are outside of this network. But for the majority of our folks, they'll be able to keep their existing providers and doctors.
Very good, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I see no other councilman that wish to speak to this. So would you please take the roll?
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 6.
Resolution 17-503, approve charges for extraordinary services for special events the year 2018. Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak to this resolution?
We have Ellen Schmidt, 4303 Swallow Banks Lane.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the Common Council and the city manager, the parks director, for all their hard work. I assume this is rather a thankless job. Last year, we were struggling with the additional fees in the form of a percentage. Since the committee met for several weeks, the fee is the same, but they have specific names to the items. It is still going to cost Sawdust Days over $4,000. We are now going to be charged for police cars, ATVs, parked vehicles, trailers, trucks. Last year, our fees were increased by $5,535 for shelters and boat ramps. Other additional costs were sewer covers, ambulance, extra generators, and fuel. Since we moved away from the permanent power, we had to have more generators. We donated $35,000 for that permanent power that we moved away from. The total additional expenses came to $14,361.43. Do I have it right down to the nickel? I think so. And now we are supposed to absorb another $4,000. On the fee scale for officers, police officers, it is my understanding that we are charged for their insurance and retirement package. I don't believe that officers actually receive $79.87 per straight hour time, 104 for overtime, and police supervisors $87.75 straight time and 114.37 for overtime. I understand the need to charge us for the officers, but it does add up. Think of what all the special events are providing for Oshkosh. How can you ask all the special events to absorb all these extra fees? For an event city, I feel this is not a friendly atmosphere for these events. I understand there was a deficit in 2015, and now you're trying to make this up. I understand that, but it's difficult to do this on the backs of special events. I would respectfully request that the City Council consider this very carefully. As I have said, this is an event city, but it does seem as though you are trying to price us out of putting these events on, which benefit the city. Thank you. You have any questions?
Thank you. Ma'am, who's the next speaker?
David Golzer, 7307 North Bridge Lane, Fox Point.
Hello, council members. I'm happy to be able to be here and speak with you. I'm Dave Gelzer. I'm the EA Legal Counsel. I was a member of the working group, and I did attend all 7 meetings, so I'm familiar with the process to the extent we were able to discuss it. I'll comment on 2 parts of the proposed special events charges. First, the use of FEMA rates for use of equipment, and second, the calculation of labor rates for police and fire services. First, I'd like to remind the council that the special events ordinance provides that, and I'm quoting, "The cost for extraordinary services charged to event organizers shall not exceed the actual costs of providing these services." Close quote. In other words, the charges must be only the incremental cost of the event services and must not include anything extra to help the city balance its budget. That's according to the ordinance. Regarding the use of FEMA rates for equipment, I've objected to this from the beginning, and I still do. These are rates that the Federal Emergency Management Agency uses when they rent equipment from a local government and others in order to deal with a disaster that the local body could not deal with on its own. The FEMA rates really are not relevant to a city charging an event organizer for temporary use of existing equipment that the city provides for an event that in some way benefits the city and its quality of life. And in no way are they designed to be limited to the actual incremental cost for use of the equipment. The FEMA rates are very high. The charge for a police car that is idling by the side of the road, usually, as I understand it, solely to provide electricity for the radio and computer, is $15.69 a day. I did a very rough estimate of what this adds up to. If a typical police car costs, for example, $35,000, and I believe they range from 20s to the 40s. If it costs $35,000, you could have that car idling for 278 days, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's 56 weeks. You will collect enough to buy the car. I believe that special events should not be charged an amount for an idling police car to buy the car in a little more than a year. I wasn't able to check other equipment such as fire trucks, ambulances, but I expect the pattern would be consistent. The FEMA rates are said to be widely accepted, fine for their intended use, but the only reason they are proposed for this purpose, in my understanding, is that they are very high and will be a nice revenue source for the city. They do not meet the test of charging only what it costs the city to provide the use of its equipment. In the example of the idling police car, that should start with the cost of gasoline and add anything else that is an actual cost, which would obviously just be a few dollars a day. I believe the city has seized on a number that is convenient and large rather than making a real effort to find a fair number for the event organizers. Regarding the calculation of labor rates for police and fire services, I thought this afternoon that I should have a look at this calculation since it is not disclosed in the material that was distributed last Thursday. After a number of requests to staff members this afternoon, I finally received the calculation, and I was amazed to see that the city has again included a 10% multiplier in the calculation of these rates. In the working group discussions, we all agreed that transparency was a key objective the city would commit to regarding special events, and we never heard any mention of a 10% surcharge. We all remember this was a major objection to the rates that were proposed at the beginning of the year, and we thought it was to be removed. I have to say that I had an opportunity to speak with Trina Larson during the break, and she explained to me that the 10% that I'm talking about, which is actually buried in the calculation of the rates, that this was intended as a budget for the compensation of the special events coordinator, Kathy Snell. That may be true. I did object to that, both the 10%, the add-on that was widely disclosed in the beginning of this year, and this 10% that's in the calculation of police and fire charges. And I did not understand it was intended for Kathy's salary. I think this is a very poor way to budget for a specific salary, since there's no tie between the 10% kicker on the rates and Kathy's compensation. So there's no way of knowing whether this is calculated to meet her actual cost of the city or whether it's way too much. We just don't know. So I object to that. I do ask that these rates be rejected and that any future proposals be required to include a complete explanation of how the charging rates are determined. Thank you.
Pam, do we have anyone else?
I do not have anybody else registered for 19.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Council, or Deputy Mayor Herman?
Thank you. Maybe Mr. Mauer can start the discussion. Can you kind of go over some of the comments that were made about charges and fees and all those types of things, and the surcharge, and just where we're at?
And I will be bringing the finance director up because we did work closely with finance and HR and payroll on a number of these. So as Mr. Golzer said, this was a long process of the working group. We did meet April through the end of July, twice a month, and then we reported to the city manager at the end of July, I believe, which met the goal of the city council of having information prepared to you prior to the city budget. And during those meetings, we went through a number of different items to discuss extraordinary costs, extraordinary services. We looked at other communities, not only in the state, but across the country, to see how they develop their fees and charges. And we also looked at what we were currently invoicing or billing the special events. And if you recall, when this item came forward earlier this year, there were a number of items that we were proposing to charge that had not been charged in the past. And those include the community service officers from the police department, various fire service, mainly the battalion chiefs, and then there were some straight time from various departments, I believe mainly the police department, that had not been charged as well. So those were part of those items that came forward. As far as the 10% add-on, that is not a 10% administrative add-on as we had discussed earlier this year. That 10% add-on has been included on invoices for all special events since the special events coordinator position was created. And that information was shared with the events working group when we took forward the formula that Trina put together for the payroll or for the staff calculations. That surcharge was included on there. That 10% surcharge does not pay for that position fully. That's a portion of her position. The remainder of her position is paid for through the use of hotel room tax. I don't know what other questions might have come up that I can address. Yes, sir.
Councilman Peck?
Mr. Mauer, what is the actual increase in fees for 2018 as compared to, it's basically 2017 event fees are X. 2018, what is the increase in the fees?
The cumulative event
The
across all
cumulative is
events?
basically, what is all of this at the end of the day, what does this increase?
I
to?
believe we are expecting if these fees are proposed and recommended for next year, the increase would be about $65,000. And the estimate, from what I'm going off my notes, I do have them here, sorry, approximately just over $50,000 in staff costs, which again, that takes into consideration a number of staff members that have not been charged in the past. And the other thing we need to remember is we're currently using 2016 rates. So we're looking at inflation costs of staff costs for 2 years because we essentially didn't have an increase in 2017. So again, roughly staff costing of about $50,000, equipment costs of just over $15,000, so roughly about $65,000 total.
So basically what you're saying is in 2017, actual costs were not even being recovered.
That is correct.
Okay. Regarding, and I don't know if this would be best answered by you or Chief Smith or Chief Franz, regarding the FEMA rates, there was a question raised about using FEMA rates. I didn't hear an alternative. Is there something else that we could base these off of, or I would assume there's a reason why FEMA rates are used?
Trina Larson has some information on that I think she would like to share, and then we can follow up with anybody else that could have.
All right.
So the basis for the FEMA rates is truly the underlying principle is if we were to adopt our own equipment rates in event of a natural disaster and FEMA were to come in, we would utilize those lower rates. And the reason that FEMA rates and some of the analysis that's been used in those development is it's from field research and from analytic methods that include both direct and indirect costs considered, such as operating variables and annual use hours, maintenance, overhaul costs, as well as unit price information, such as fuel prices, labor rates, and the cost of money. So essentially, what FEMA is trying to do is more than just recover that cost of the police car. We all know in the maintenance of our annual vehicles, it's not just the cost when you purchase your vehicle. You also have all the ongoing maintenance, the fuel, the tires, and really that's what FEMA has been built around and established.
Okay. I had one other question. Gosh, it's terrible getting old, you forget.
While you're thinking,
All right, go ahead.
Councilperson Palmieri.
Actually, this is for you, Trina. So it could be between Ms. Larson and Ms. Lawrenson, because I have a question about the gentleman from EAA's statements. And the organization is a nonprofit. I think their 990 is available publicly, you know, tens of thousands of dollars in assets, this kind of thing. I'm sorry, tens of millions. Do we currently have a pilot or a payment in lieu of taxes with that nonprofit organization?
We do not have a pilot agreement with the EAA.
Thank you.
Councilman Peck.
All right, I did remember. There are opportunities to reduce the fees, correct? With the organizers, that they can take alternative measures. One of the things related to is specifically to the questions of sawdust days, that they could move the location and then not have to, if they didn't tie up a park facility, or if they were to move out of the boat landing, they could potentially not have to pay that fee. But there are ways that the organizers can work with the city in minimizing or mitigating the costs. Is that correct?
The one thing that our working group really had good discussions on, and it was partially in regards to this equipment fee. One of the opportunities that we truly have as government is we want to adopt this equipment schedule, but there's also areas of opportunity that maybe we can work with some of these events, with some of our equipment that we're retiring, and possibly keep that equipment on with some of their support in lieu of an equipment fee. So starting to think more creatively and as in more of a partnership role versus just looking at only an equipment charge. That is something that our working group had a lot of discussion on when we talked about equipment, and I see that as a large area of opportunity for the city. We also discussed the barricade rental, as this is also something that is currently, we are in the barricade business, and from my perspective, it is not part of our business model. There are other private businesses here in the city of Oshkosh that do rent barricades. So one thing that we would like to see is, if there are other areas for private sector business to come in and to partner as part of these special events, we want to encourage those avenues as well. So it's about thinking creatively and utilizing all the resources within the community to include the city.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Herman?
Thank you. Mr. Mauer, you probably can answer this one. To help our special events, we've built into this changes progression, right? We're not charging 100% from day one. It's a 4-year build-in process, correct?
Correct. That's what we, as a working group, said what we would like to do is give the event organizers time to plan. We are not coming forward with 100% equipment fee at this time. What we are proposing is a 25% increment over the next 4 years. So in 2018, we'd be recouping 25% cost, 2019 another 25%, so that after 4 years, we'd be at that 100% rate. What we felt was that would give the event organizers an opportunity to know this is what the full rate is, and the city is discounting it for these first couple of years, but plan your budgets for that in 4 years. You will need to plan for these costs.
That's the FEMA rates.
The FEMA rates, yes.
Correct, the FEMA rates. And maybe Chief Smith can answer this one. There was a question about salary of an officer. What is the base hourly salary of our police officers?
That would be a Trina question.
Whoa, well, I figured you'd know it. I mean, just, I know there's step grades and there's all that, but a plain, I don't want to say a plain, they're all important, police officers. What is an average police officer salary? We have it on our sheet, and that's accurately reflected, correct?
That would be correct. So what the city is using, and this is a methodology that we did modify this year in our working group, is what we're really looking at is the loaded cost of an employee. And so it's the hourly wage, the benefits, and some of the compensatory time that the police and fire and other departments do receive, and divided by their total number of hours working. So those hours are fully substantiated through our budgets. The one modification that came out of our working group this year is we had traditionally charged health insurance in our regular rate, as well as our overtime and double time rate. That is something that one of the event participants in our working group did feel that that was an unfair practice because health insurance is not increased if a person works more hours than their regular hours. And so the methodology we are currently proposing does not include health insurance for overtime or double time. And that is a modification that is coming from the working group.
Okay, thank you.
It appears that no other council members wish to speak to this. Councilman Peck?
Well, first of all, I would thank all of the members of the working group for all the time and effort they put in, as well as staff. This was a long time in coming, and I think that we have a product that, while I don't think there's ever anything that everyone will agree on 100%, I think this is a very good product that has a significant amount of buy-in. As a special events organizer, I do appreciate the services that the city provides for me and and our organization to hold a safe event, and that allows us to contribute make a significant contribution to our communities. So, and I will just have to, as we will have to just figure a way within our budget to cover these additional costs, but they're a part of allowing us to have the event, have it safe for our participants as well as the community. So I commend everyone that was involved in this, and I think it's like I said, while it's not a product that has 100% buy-in, I think it has a significant amount of buy-in and was well thought out and is indeed verifiable. So thank you.
Councilperson Palmieri?
I just wanted to add that we heard from many of the event organizers that, this was back in the spring, that they wanted more time because it was too much to absorb the entire increase all at once. And that message was heard, and it was presented, and the core group, the special task group, worked on that. So having 4 years to phase in those increases through their budgeting of those events, I feel like is more than fair. And so I will be supporting this.
Deputy Mayor Herman?
Thank you. Just a comment. I think there's some misunderstanding with some of the special event people that the city of Oshkosh does not want special events in Oshkosh, and that we don't appreciate the economic impact that the special event brings to Oshkosh. And I would disagree with that. It benefits our hotels, it benefits our restaurants, it benefits convenience stores, our box stores, it benefits all of them. But yet there is a cost to having a police department. There's a cost to having a fire department and paramedics and the auxiliary and the CSOs. There's a cost for them that we need to provide to make sure the event is safe, that our citizens can enjoy it, people can come from outside the area and enjoy it. But there's a cost to doing that business, and that special event has to realize that there's a cost to the city of Oshkosh. It's not about us not appreciating how important events are and appreciate the event city and that title. We want good events in Oshkosh, and we want them safe. We want them for everybody to enjoy. So I think that some words get taken out of context, which they do a lot of times, but special events are very important to Oshkosh, just as much as we heard tonight how important it is to keep Oshkosh Corp here. There ain't one of us that don't believe that that's an important thing. But that being said, we have a business to run too, and we have an obligation to our citizens of Oshkosh to make sure that we are compensated for the services that our professional staff provides to these special events. And I will also support the increase. And I think, again, with the other council members, thank the working group, because without that input, then it looks like we're strong-arming everything, and that's not the case here. So, thank you.
Would the city clerk please take the roll?
Herman?
Aye.
Pansky?
Aye.
Rosie?
Aye.
Peck?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 6.
Next, we have council discussion, direction of city manager, and future agenda items. The first is a budget workshop on October 30th and 31, 8 a.m. That's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. both days. Pam, is there anyone that would like to speak to this?
I have nobody registered for this citizen statement portion.
We will now move on to
Well,
these.
just, Mr. Mayor, I plan on being there, but those are the last 2 days of the month, so I may have to take some time away for business-related.
Okay. Does everyone else plan on being there?
Yep.
Days? Okay. Is one of those days the day have to bring pizza?
You were working all day, so we'll have lunch and breakfast accommodations.
Oh, I'm off the hook then.
I'll make sure I'm here at lunch then.
Yeah.
Mark it down.
Next is the second time for citizens to make statements to the council. Is there anyone, Pam, who wishes to address the council at this point?
There's no one.
Thank you. So I will not read all this stuff. Now we have council member announcements and statements. I see no lights being illuminated, so it's now city manager announcements and statements. Mr. Roloff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A handful of things in your packet this evening. I want to draw your attention to two in particular. Recognition of the Sacred Heart District Neighborhood Association and the Congress Field Neighborhood Association. The mayor and I were both contacted by one of the leaders in the Congress Field Neighborhood Association today. They were very excited, so we're real happy. Sacred Heart is another South Side neighborhood association. We've been trying to focus on that because we don't have a lot of South Side neighborhood associations, so it's great to have them. And I'm happy to report during the break, somebody approached me about maybe forming another one in one of the South Side neighborhoods, so I was very excited to hear that. So we got those two in there. Arena update and public improvements. I will draw to your attention the last page. The public improvements from our standpoint are going well with one exception, and that is the railroad crossing under the tracks at 14th Avenue. CN Railroad has not been very responsive. Is that a fair way to say it, James? They haven't been very responsive. I let Mr. Robbie know that I ran into Congressman Grothman yesterday, and I brought it to his attention because I think we may need to get some federal intervention on this because we've had such a poor response from CN. It is, for the water loop, it's not that big a deal. That's really a long-term improvement that we wanted to put in, and it's still necessary, but if it didn't get done immediately, that's no big deal. The bigger concern is the stormwater because, and we've had this problem before, but you really want to get it worked on. We've upsized our mains throughout that area, but the main that goes under, there is a storm sewer main that goes under the track currently, but, and this is just for illustration, the one that goes under the track is give or take, and James is going to correct me if I get too technical, but it's only so big. The ones that are leading to it are this big. We need to make sure that we have the right size. It's larger, the ones leading to it are larger than the ones under the track. If we don't get that resolved, potential flooding would be there if we had a major storm event. So, James, I'm not sure if you want to add more to that, but I wanted to bring it to your attention now because we've just not been getting the responsiveness. And the project otherwise is going well if we only had that permission, which we've been seeking since day one. So, James, if you could just explain.
Yeah, I think, we've done extensive watershed modeling for that watershed, and there is a significant need to upsize the storm sewer. There's currently 2 storm sewers that cross under the tracks, or there was. One of them has since failed. There's an old corrugated metal pipe installed in the 1950s, and as anybody knows, that type of material rusts very easily. So as our contractor started working, one of the pipes that goes under the tracks did actually fail and blow out and fill their trench with water. So they had to kind of scramble and get it cut off and abandon that one pipe under the railroad tracks already to prevent a failure to the tracks. The CN design team and engineering group has been less than cooperative. They've been imposing significantly more restrictions on trying to permit this crossing, primarily due to fact that down in the northern Illinois area, they did have a derailment due to a boring contractor, but it was the contractor doing something foolish that caused it. And they have reacted very strongly and are attempting to propose very significant changes that really are, I feel, going to cause more of a problem than they're correcting. So it's been an extreme challenge, and engineering division staff have devoted an enormous amount of time working with them and trading correspondence and trying to get this approval, but yet, every time we submit what they ask for, they throw more requirements at us and just continue to move the target on us.
Councilperson Pansky.
Thank you, Mayor. My question was regarding the issue with the railroad, and that if you needed council to do anything in particular to get this moving, I don't know if you are comfortable with leaving this in the hands of our representatives besides us, or if there is action that we need to be taking on this.
There's nothing formal action that would need to be taken. I wanted to make you aware of it, and that usually the best approach when you're dealing with the railroads is to get to the federal level because they're federally regulated. And I felt that was appropriate. I told James if I have a chance to talk to any of the members of Congress, I was going to mention it to him, and there was Mr. Grothman at my Rotary meeting yesterday, so I took advantage of that. I think it's appropriate to contact Senator Johnson's office, Senator Baldwin's office, and just let them know that we're not getting the
Are
cooperation.
you comfortable doing that, or is that something that we as a council need to take action on?
It never hurts.
Okay.
So I will do it. If any one of you chooses to supplement anything I send, it never hurts. So I'm turning you loose, I guess.
Phone calls.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
just for council's information, my office has also been involved with it, and so we are assisting engineering with pushing this forward, so.
I would iterate that your office has been very extensively involved and has been a great asset to my team.
And that's why I reached my frustration level, and I've joked with staff before, this is a term that I've heard over the years, Alan knows this because we've been using this for years. Yeah, the engineering has been as good as you can expect. Now it's time to do what I call political engineering. So, yes, you fall into that category quite
Yes,
well.
I
Thank
was
you.
on the phone from my hotel in Vegas calling my representatives, so I will call them about this now as well.
Thank you.
Councilman Peck, you have a
Oh,
question?
I'm sorry.
I was just going to reiterate, I do believe we have a Wisconsin senator who is, doesn't he reside in Oshkosh, I think? So.
Yeah, and I would say that when we had the issue with the SBA on this project, they were very helpful as well.
So I'm sure we'll be making some phone calls.
Councilperson Palmieri.
So my question is regarding, well, it's kind of a two-part question here. One is liability-wise, Ms. Lawrenson, if we do not get this agreement and there is a flood and we're not connected to the right size, I mean, what are we looking at liability-wise?
I would prefer not to answer that in open session.
Thank you. And I guess the other question is, when did we, I guess, start that process? How long have we been chipping away at it, Mr. Ravi?
Since we
long time.
determined what size we needed to put under the tracks, and we had the first drawings and plans that were of a state to be able to submit for permits, if I had to venture, I would say we've been working at this for at least 3 or 4 months at this point in time.
All right, thanks.
The next item, the draft TIF materials are in your packet. The idea was to get some feedback from that. It's not necessary that you give it tonight, but the idea is that we would like to put this on an upcoming schedule, but we have the process timeline. Give you an idea, I think we used the mythical May 1st start date and how long it would take to just give you an idea of how the process would work. Application scoring criteria with all 3 categories, mixed use, no, I knew that one. What are the 3? Redevelopment.
Rehabilitation and industrial.
So those are your 3, and then staff put together a table on development agreements that we'll go through, and those are really the issues that are there. Alan, I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to point out in that packet.
No, other than if there's any comments from council, staff will be working on that over here in October, and we anticipate bringing that before you for action in November. So we've got 2 or 3 weeks here still to give us some commentary. Thank you.
And then the last 2 items are reporting to council about engineering or professional services agreement. 25 is getting ready for our 2018 capital improvements. AECom has done this for us in previous years. Basically what this is going out and just doing geotechnical testing to get ready for the engineers to do the design of the 2018 capital improvements. 10 of that is just to get our records in place, so we know, we have a pretty good idea of what's out there before we start digging it up. And then lastly, just in terms of reporting, because there have been some questions, in fact, a question just came up at one of the public input sessions last week, Halcyon Levine, the estimated amount is $45,000. I think it's less than $25,000 right now, but we haven't been billed and haven't received all the services, depending on how much more we want them to come back. That it's really on a time and materials basis, so I wanted to report it because just wanted to be upfront about it. It could cost us as much as that, but there it is for your information, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything.
Deputy Mayor Herman.
Thank you. I just, on 25 with AECom, I just hope we stress to them the importance of accurate information to our engineers, so we don't keep having these change orders because we didn't know what was in the soil. We didn't know that this pipe was collapsed. We didn't know this and that. That's what we're paying them for to do, and they're not doing their job. So I hope we stress to them that they get it done accurate, or we might be looking elsewhere in the future. And then on 26, under the analysis, I guess it goes back to the discussion. You're saying it's open, there's nothing etched in stone, but yet you're asking them to only do those 2 concept plans in a 3D. That's it.
Well,
So how open is that for the discussion part of it?
Yeah, well, the idea behind whenever you're doing a conceptual plan, it's really to get information out there to generate input from the public. We got a lot of input, for example, on the Sawdust District. But I can tell you that if you look at the Sawdust District, and Councilor Palmieri and I talked about this, there was an idea there that Halcyon Levine wasn't familiar with a reality that you can't put a pedestrian bridge across the Fox River there at grade level. These are ideas that they put out there based on things that people may want to think about. Obviously, that's not practical for us, but the idea behind a conceptual plan is really to get public input generated. It's sort of it's a catalyst for that
I
discussion.
understand that, but at the same time, we're putting a proposal together, and that's part of the proposal.
The proposal for Oshkosh Corp is not, that was really more for public consumption than Oshkosh Corp consumption, is to show the public the possibilities that exist beyond just the 30 acres of Oshkosh Corporation. Oshkosh Corporation, I don't think it's that big an issue at this point about those things. We'll be talking later in closed session about different things that we may want to negotiate. It's not specific to this, but this can climb in with that, and I can explain it in closed session as well.
All right, thanks.
Councilperson Palmieri.
Regarding those 2 items as well, first I'll address the Halcyon Levine. I guess in light of the fact that we lost a number of months with them on our initial contract, I believe there were some personnel concerns and issues, and things came to a stop. I'm a little surprised that we chose to have them go with this piece of it. So I hope that they come in significantly less than that. Secondly, on engineering services, as Councilmember Herman was, referring to, we've had a number of missteps through kind of I don't want to call it a comedy of errors because it hasn't been funny. They've been big numbers. So with this $74,800 investment, do we anticipate that this is solid? I mean, because we are really, really depending upon this company. And if we chose them because of their familiarity with us, and we've been doing this with them for a number of years, it would seem that we would have a little better results.
I think,
It may be appropriate for council to have a work session on how this works, because if you want 100% accuracy,
No.
you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. So with that said, it may be appropriate to have a workshop to go over this so there's a good understanding of it. And I think James, James, I know you have an answer, but I think maybe that's I think there's some misunderstanding about how this works. We've had projects that have been under budget this year. Eveline Street wouldn't have happened unless we were $1 million under budget. So those things happen, but it's not because of bad engineering, it's because of bad soils. And unless you want to completely dig up a road before you start constructing it, there is some guesswork. There is not 100%. And I think James, with his experience in engineering, can explain that, because I can only do partial justice to that explanation.
Well, I guess before you start, Mr. Robbie, excuse me, I'm sorry. I would just, I guess, add to that just as we did a facilities assessment recently on some of our buildings, it would seem that, at least by what I'm reading, that we're contracting with them to do, we're kind of assessing another type of facility, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so that information helps us make decisions, and obviously, we're not going to be at that 100%. So I'm just saying that I hope that we have this more solidified, and not just hope, I would expect that.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with the environmental records review is the work that they're due, they are limited on what information the DNR has available in their databases and their records. If a release was not reported to the DNR, there's no way that they could discover it through their records review and their research. And that's unfortunately one of the challenges that we encounter with the environmental records review. To the extent that we're able to estimate locations and size, that we then use that information when we do have a geotechnical drilling company on board, so that they can drill in those areas, so that we can obtain samples, so that we can test the materials ahead of time and have a soil management plan prepared so that we know exactly how to manage what we're dealing with. Certainly I think some of the issues that have occurred in the past have been on the geotechnical side, not so much on the environmental records review that we've had from them. So, and to the extent that if there is an error, made in their professional judgment, we have had consultants that they've made a mistake and they've owned that and they've paid their share of it. AECOM has done it, other consultants, RBT, we had an issue with drilling, they owned their share of it and they had to pay us for their share of that. So, where there is a professional error, we do recover that cost, but where, an error is because there was no information available, that's not a professional error on their part. So, we do the best we can to try to identify everything, but anytime we open up a hole in the ground, inevitably there will probably be something we couldn't anticipate, and we try to minimize that with all of our investigations.
Thank you.
Councilman Peck?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's kind of interesting, both of these, it's like on one hand, we're saying we need to hold people to task about the amount of money that we're spending, and on the other one, we're basically saying that, well, here's the amount of money, but why aren't we considering X? Why aren't we expanding the scope of services? So regarding the AECOM thing, yeah, you are correct that they do have a professional obligation. They have a code of conduct, they have a code of ethics, and they'll follow that. And there is art and there is science. And I am concerned when we do have cost overruns, but as Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld once said, there's known unknowns and there's unknown knowns. And these are professionals. And Mr. Robbie did indicate that when they make a mistake, they own it. And when it is something that was within their control, they will do it. There's things that are outside their control. I'm not defending, I'm not saying in any stretch of the imagination that it doesn't matter on cost overruns, but none of us here are professional engineers, and we ask our staff to hold the people that do our engineering services to the highest standards, and I believe they do that. And sometimes things just happen. But then on the other hand, we say that there's an amount of money that we're spending, but then we say, well, why aren't we considering this? Well, again, there's costs. You pay for what you get, and so we have to keep that in mind. But it's just I wanted to get that out there and understood.
The last thing that Chief Franz asked me to mention is, Chief Franz, oh, there he is. It's, Chief wants to report on Fire Prevention Week.
Thank you. Just wanted to have a quick opportunity to tell you it is Fire Prevention Week. We are out canvassing the neighborhood between Jackson and to the west between New York and Murdoch Street doing our smoke detector program. So we don't have time to hit all the neighborhoods, so I just wanted to have a reminder to everybody that this is a great time to check your smoke detectors.
One last thing, speaking of Jackson Street, can we do something about the raceway between Murdoch and New York? And actually between Murdoch and your facility?
Thank you, Chief Franz.
I've actually met with the community members in that area.
I've been seeing the signs.
Well, yeah, they're using their resources that the city's providing to them well to purchase some of the signs you see consistently through there. I know there's a new set of signs that just recently showed up. We met with them. They've also been before Traffic Review Board on some ideas. They have a creative idea, and they want to use some grant money that I've supported to purchase a radar. Your speed is this, and the speed limit is this type of signage. So they do a bit more public information as to the speed. So we are working with them, and we are doing some enforcement efforts in there.
Okay, yeah, because sometimes those, James, what do you refer to them, educational coupons or something?
Those little gifts that my folks give every day.
Yeah, because, I mean, I drive that stretch every day, and sometimes it's ridiculous.
Yes.
How fast some people are going.
I would agree.
And when you're going the speed limit, you get the dirty look like, what the heck are you doing? So, all right, thank you.
Councilperson Palmieri.
Just, Chief Smith, if I could just follow up on that then with a question. So the grant money that, it's Jackson the historic Jackson
Yes.
Neighborhood
Yes.
Association, right? Okay, so then that equipment that they're getting, would that be like shared with other neighborhoods, or is that going to be their sole property, or how?
It'll be,
Yeah.
their concept is to have it mounted on a pole, whether it be a light pole or a utility pole.
Okay, so it's a permanent.
So it'll be a fixed item on there.
I see.
So we've given
Okay.
them some ideas on some cost-saving efforts, and we actually do have some signboards. We have one signboard right now within the police department that we can take and move in various places. If it's needed, my folks will be more than happy to bring it out to the neighborhoods.
Okay, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Herman.
Just one comment, Chief, to you. I want to commend your task force that is in their first year.
Yes.
Great success.
First 6
Great
months,
work.
Yes.
And keep it up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. At this point, Deputy Mayor Herman would like to make a motion to go into closed session.
I move that following the adjournment of this meeting, the council may convene in the closed session to discuss bargaining options, strategy, parameters, and terms related to the negotiation of possible agreement for the redevelopment of Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E of the Wisconsin State Statutes where competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session. And the council may convene in the closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C of the Wisconsin State Statutes to discuss the performance evaluation and compensation regarding the city manager, an employee over which the common council has jurisdiction and exercises responsibility.
Need a second?
Second.
Would you please take the roll?
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 6.
I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Adjourn.